Just coming to me.
So, who else are we waiting on then, Jim?
Brian and Art said they would be here.
Because Peter, yeah, I
Yeah,
see it's
right.
just remote. Cool.
Right.
Hey. There you are. That's gone. It's new. Not much. My daughter's starting kindergarten next week, so. Exciting. Yeah, it'll be cool.
Yeah.
New schedule and everything, though, that will be as fun.
Yeah. They're getting this one of it. Yeah.
Thanks for helping.
Where? Just going to.
She's actually going to Ben Franklin for the charter, but should be good.
So my daughter goes.
Oh, does she?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard great things about it. That's cool. Busy?
Yeah, just I think I go back to work.
Really?
Here Art out there. There it is. All right. 7 o'clock.
Okay. How's it going?
remote, there it is, yeah.
Yep. All right. All right, welcome to the Bellingham Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for September 2nd. First in-person meeting in a while. Before we start the meeting, I just wanted to acknowledge that our town planner, Jim Cutford, sadly is going to be leaving us and going to Barnstable. I'm sure as the rest of the board knows, how long has it been, Jim? Has it been 6 years?
Yeah, about 6 years, a little over 6 years.
But Jim has been obviously a great asset to the town. He's been a great help to me personally and to the board. It's going to be a big loss to the town. So we just wish the best for you, but you're definitely going to be missed.
Thank you.
It's going to be big shoes to fill. So I'll just move on to the first item on the agenda is a continuation for 161 and 169 Maple Street.
So I see we have Attorney Kim Crowa on the line. We also have Town Council Amy Questle available for any questions. In your package tonight, you have from the original hearing opening a few months back, the application of the appeal of the planning board's approval decision. And in addition, you also have the decision itself. I'm sure Attorney Crowe can walk you through their application.
Okay, and it's, so you said, yeah, town council is available, is on the Zoom call.
Yep, Amy's right there.
Hi, Amy.
Okay, I guess,
Completed as dialed. Please check the number and dial again. Announcement.
Peter, you might want to pay attention, bud.
all right, is it, Amy, are you there? Is it, it looks like you're muted, but are you on?
I'm here. I was muted, but I'm here.
Okay,
Can you-
I guess,
You
is
guys
there,
can hear me?
yeah, we can hear you.
Great.
So is there any, have you heard anything else, any updates, I guess, from the last time we met?
I'm not sure. I thought you guys continued it automatically.
Okay, so,
Yeah, so what I would say, I would suggest that the applicant present their appeal, and then that I would suggest the planner then have comments on the appeal, and then we could go to questions.
okay, and who is the representative for the applicant? Are they available on their remote through Zoom?
Yes. Hi, good evening, members of the board. This is Attorney Kim Crowe. I'm an attorney for the applicant, LMP Properties, and I have Will Boyle, who's also on remote. He's on behalf of the applicant. And as was stated, we're here on an appeal from a development plan approval decision that was issued by the planning board in April of this year. The applicant has, as I'm sure most of the board is aware, a mulch business on Maple Street. The subject of the development plan application related to the properties at 161 and 169 Maple Street. There was a history with the property with a mulch use that's been there since prior to 2011. And there was a prior lawsuit that we can get into or not get into, depending on what the questions are. But the prior lawsuit was dismissed, and part of what the agreement was coming out of that is that the applicant was going to file for a stormwater system permit through conservation. And that has been applied for and received. The Conservation Commission issued a decision in 2020 authorizing the stormwater system to go on to where there sits right now a residential house on 161 Maple Street. And that stormwater system would service the mulch operation at 169 Maple Street. Now, because of the amount of area that was being disturbed with the stormwater, that triggered the development plan thresholds. And so part of the agreement also was that we would file the development plan application, which we did. And during that process, the applicant raised a number of times that this really comes down to taking a look at the stormwater system and the aspects of the properties that are being impacted by what we're proposing. The bylaw is very clear that it talks about the planning board taking a look at the impacts of the project. So in this case, the mulch operation has been there for a considerable period of time. The fire chief had weighed in during the process in front of the Conservation Commission, and part of what came out of that is the applicant had agreed to put a fire roadway around the edge of the property with essentially bollards at a designated position so that there could be an access around 169. And so the applicant filed its application here, or not here, with the planning board, and through the development plan process, there was a lot of questions about other aspects of the mulch business, most specifically about the noise and sound and fire safety of the mulch business in and of itself. And so the applicant continually took the position that this really was outside of the scope, but we were going to do what we could and what was reasonable to try to address those concerns that the town was raising. And part of the application included a sound fence that would go along Maple Street, included additional vegetation, and essentially cleaning up and blocking the property to try to alleviate some of the current concerns that had been raised by the planning board. After a number of hearings and testimony from presentations from me, but then we also had our engineer from GZA presenting to the planning board. The planning board issued a decision with a series of conditions. I think there were 24 conditions. And many of them went well beyond the scope of the development plan approval bylaw. And that's even beyond the scope of the bylaw if it were a brand new business that was being approved through the development plan application. But particularly when you look at it as the conditions were related to a mulch business that had been there for a number of years, and if anything was being pulled back in the scope of this, in the scope of the work that was being approved, because they now had a roadway around the exterior and the proposal was introducing the sound fence that would also try to alleviate some of those concerns. So we filed the appeal under the provision of the bylaw that provides for that being the remedy, and that's section 240-16B3. So anyone aggrieved from a planning board decision under development plan approval, the process that the bylaw is set out is to appeal that to the zoning board of appeals. And under the zoning board of appeals, as an appellate board, the position that you're in tonight is to determine if the decision that was issued by the planning board goes beyond the scope of what the bylaws provide for. So part of our package that was submitted to the zoning board included basically a cover letter enumerating the conditions so that although there's more than the conditions listed in the letter, the conditions that we felt if they were modified or deleted, as we had put in our letter, that we could live with the other aspects that were imposed on the business and on the buildings that we didn't feel like were appropriate or were lawful under the scheme of the bylaws. And I can go through those conditions one by one if the board prefers, or if the members of the board have read the letter, I'm happy to just go over questions with respect to the individual conditions.
I think because it looks like you cite about 8 conditions. I think it'd be helpful if you could briefly go one by one, and then we can discuss.
I'd be happy to do that. All right, so the first condition is condition number 7. The part of the decision included a requirement that low barrier walls be placed around the mulch piles. And this condition came out of the fire code. There is a fire code that's been around for a long time, and it talks about low barrier walls for a certain type of storage, which isn't particularly applicable to the mulch that's sitting there on the property. That's not, it's just essentially being stored until it gets moved back out and it's being treated. And during the planning board hearings, the fire chief had participated in some of the hearings, and he had acknowledged that the best way to combat fires when you have piles of mulch is to continually rotate them and spread them out. So the condition required low barrier walls around 3 edges of the mulch piles, which would essentially restrict LMP and JD Raymond's ability to move those mulch piles and keep them rotating and address them if there was a heat source that happened. So that's the first method of defense when heat starts building in the mulch pile, is to go in and pull it apart and move it apart. And so the low barrier walls actually creates a safety hazard based on the way that they need to reach the piles. And it also, in many ways, defeats the purpose of having the fire road that goes all the way around the property, because you wouldn't be able to use that road to access the piles, because now you'd have this wall in the way. So
Although I guess you're saying that the fire chief was saying that's a first line of defense for the barrier wall, and then you have the road.
That the first line of defense for the mulch piles is to spread them out and break them apart. In order to do that, you need to be able to get at them and be able to pull them apart from many different angles, not just one angle, not just one area. So the condition came out of a cite to the fire code and just saying, well, that's what it says, so that's what I'm going to require. But the conversation that took place demonstrated that it actually would be a prohibitive aspect of actually combating heat building inside mulch piles.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yep.
Wasn't also the reason for these low walls to continually provide a width of access throughout all the mulch piles instead of the red painted lines that were once proposed?
Well, the way that it would be, the 3 low barrier walls would go around the mulch piles. And it would still be the open road. So we had proposed a 30-foot opening down the middle of the property with the painted walls. And so
Okay, but-
I'm sorry,
but-
the painted lines.
But
So
Kim,
that
if,
was,
and I will interrupt you. The walls were there for a reason, that was to constantly maintain that width, correct?
correct. The point of the walls is to define the area of the mulch pile.
Yeah.
So certainly it does define, but it also makes it more difficult to reach the mulch pile to break it apart.
Okay.
Hey, Kim, Will Boyle here. If I could just speak for a moment. So we're not just bringing mulch in and putting it in a pile and storing it there for 3 months and then moving it back out. I mean, this wood is brought in and it's processed and it's moved from point A to point B to point C, back to point A, over to point D, back to point B, and then back to point A to be stored. And then it's moved out. So it's not just a simple process of bringing this in, dumping it in one spot and leaving it.
Can you, what is your position or relationship to the applicant? Just to explain your position, Tim. Is it Tim?
Will,
Sorry.
yes. So I manage all the properties and all the permitting for the applicant.
Okay, you just wanted to know what your title was.
Okay.
Okay, I think, should we move on to the next condition?
Do we want to cover one
Do
question?
you want to do one at a time? I guess whatever the board feels is most helpful.
Well, I
Do you
have,
wanna cover one
I have
at a
another
time?
question with regard to
Sure.
condition 7 as well. So I'm assuming these low barrier walls would be the Jersey barriers, am I correct?
That's good.
It's not defined to what they are, but it just says low barrier walls. And that's both the safety concerns, but then the practical use of the property is that they would be prohibitive to being able to operate the mulch facility there. But there isn't a set definition of what those
So
look
if,
like.
my point is, if the low barrier walls, something similar to at least the Jersey barriers, with the huge equipment that you guys have, it would not be a big deal to move those so that you could rotate mix up the piles or whatever it is that you have to do and then put the Jersey barriers or whatever low barrier walls you would have. It doesn't seem like a huge inconvenience to have those walls there.
Well, then we would have to move the Jersey barriers into the fire lane. So to give everybody an analogy of what we're talking about, and I mean, you're basically clipping our wings for the process. So everybody here has either made an apple pie from scratch or seen someone make it. So what you're asking us to do is make an apple pie within an apple pie dish. That's the only place that we can make the apple pie.
Not
We
if
have
you
to
can move
roll
the
out the
barriers.
dough.
Not if you can move the barriers, that's not the case.
Right, but where do we move the barriers? We have to move them into the fire lane in order to, and then that becomes a safety issue.
Jim,
I think the bottom line was that the planning board looked at this, said that the deputy fire chief has required this based on the fire code, and the fact that they don't have an opportunity to move Jersey barriers out of the way is kind of the point. It's a small site with too much stuff there, and the fire chief wants to make sure those lanes are preserved.
Well, I guess-
Well, if you look at the recycling facility in Bellingham, you guys do the same thing at the recycling facility. You bring in leaves, you bring in trees, you bring in clippings, you bring in a lot more stuff than we bring in. It's all biological. But then you're turning it into mulch and you're turning it into compost. And you guys do not have load barrier walls there because they don't work when you're trying to process this stuff into mulch, into compost. And neither does the other facility that's in town. If we were just bringing mulch in, like some of the landscape outfits do, and people were pulling up with their trailer or their pickup truck to get mulch, that's where the barrier walls would work because it's a finished product. We're actually manufacturing, we're making a product. Like I said, go back to the analogy of making an apple pie within an apple pie dish.
Well,
everything.
Isn't the purpose of the 3 walls so that you have access to one side at all times? Or is that not correct?
This material is put in on one side and then it has to sit. There's a whole recipe for each one of these, believe it or not. Some of them are double ground, some of them are triple ground. They're ground at different, we use different blades to make them more fine than other ones. And
So the other question I have is that, so the fire marshal, when they're citing the code, I
Mm-hmm.
assume is related to your use, which would be, what would that fall under, Jim? Like industrial or manufacturing?
Right, so-
unfortunately, what we fall under is we fall under wood waste. Even though the wood that's brought in are trees or their branches, things like that. So it's really not waste, but that's the way it's classified. Because there's nothing dirty about anything that we bring in.
To me, the point of the fire marshal citing it is that with the code is meant to be all encompassing, that if you fall under a certain use designation, that's what the code is for. It's not the.
But when you look at the definition of the storage of bulk materials, I mean, how long is that storage? I mean, I can see when you shrink wrap your boat and you put it into storage, it's in there for 6 months. This really isn't storage. We're in the manufacturing business. So we have a pile that is there for part of the recipe is maybe it has to sit for 6 weeks. And then we grind it again and it moves over into another pile. And then from there, it sits 8 weeks. And then we have to grind it again and move it into another pile. So these piles are constantly moving. The only time that they could be considered storage is from the time when they're finished and they're sitting there ready to leave. So you're talking between November and January when this stuff starts to ship out.
So I think the other thing that Peter makes a good point is that the walls serve 2 purposes. That you have the citing to the combustibles, but also to maintain those access ways, those aisles.
So why aren't we doing this over at the Bellingham recycling facility if this is so important?
Well, I guess that's why I would defer to the fire marshal and say that he's probably better versed in
Right, because
fire
they're not,
safety than I am, so I would tend to.
they're
want
not
to
doing
follow
it at your
recommendation.
facility because it prohibits you from doing what you need to do over there.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I would like to butt in and move on here, unless the other board members have a question. Our deputy fire chief has made it extremely clear that red painted lines in the ground will not continuously give us fire access around this. I, for one, I will not go against the recommendations of the bylaws. And our deputy fire chief, we have to trust in him. If he's had this request, I'm not sure if I can go against his request.
The red lines seem to work on every airport and every Air Force base in the world.
I appreciate that, Will, but in this, we hire these people, they're professionals, and I have to trust what he's requested.
So there's
So-
at least 3 storage properties of mulch in Bellingham. We're the only one that you're going to require to have these blocks around their piles.
You are the one that's in front of us for the special permit.
Yeah,
So-
we're really just tasked with that.
We
Okay.
can move on from that. I can just,
No,
I'll
that's
just be
fine.
very open with
You
you.
answered my question.
Yeah,
You
I
answered my
can be
question.
very open
I'm
with
good.
you. I cannot go against the recommendation of our deputy fire chief or the state fire marshal.
Right, but he made
just
this
will not.
recommendation 2.5 years into this. So the goalpost keeps moving. At first, it was, we want a fire road so we can gain access for safety all the way around. Perfect, we did that. Then they wanted a barrier, a removable barrier around that fire road. Okay, and then they wanted 5 more feet on the road, and we said, okay. So now, then they wanted red lines around all the piles.
So I think
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman. Thank you, Amy Questle, Town Council. We are straying way far away from.
That's what yeah.
Thank you. So this is an appeal of a develop, so we need to go back to, if they want to go through their conditions, they can go through their conditions. We're not going to talk about what the town of Bellingham is doing and what, whatever is doing. What you have before you is what you have before you.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to just limit it to the discussion right in front of us to not veer off course. I guess I'll just For this one, I'll open it up to the rest of the board if there are any other comments on this condition.
I'd just like to know that I'd like to recuse myself due to a conflict, being a shareholder and employee of GZA. I'd like to
Okay.
recuse myself from voting on the separate.
So what, do we have to appoint someone else in his place then, Jim? or-
Not for this appeal, no.
Not
You're
for
okay.
this. Okay.
To pick up on that, it's obviously, it's no secret I'm on the planning board too. I think everybody knows that. I've consulted with town council on this occasion and on prior occasions where this situation has arisen, where there's been a, planning board decision, zoning board decision. I've been told that it is not a conflict for me to hear this appeal in this capacity, as a different capacity. I personally don't feel conflicted that I can handle this and evaluate the merits of the appeal separately than what was required of the planning board's decision. So just, I know that's not a secret, but I just wanted to say.
No, it's good. Yeah, it's noted. Okay, I guess,
We should move on to.
move on to the next item. Yeah, next condition.
So I'll move on to condition 8, but just to wrap up condition 7, I will just to correct, this isn't a special permit. This is an appeal from a development plan approval. And the decision standard that applies to fire in that, it doesn't require compliance. First of all, it's a stormwater system that's being changed on the property. But beyond that, the decision standards for development plan approval require a determination there's adequate access provided to each structure for fire and service equipment. The condition was met by it to the extent it applies at all to the mulch business. The fire road that was put in at the fire chief's request and the conservation does confirm that adequate access. But I understand. I'll move on to condition 8. Condition 8 requires an air quality analysis for basically the entire operation, but the stormwater system, of course, does not have an odor component of it. There were questions having to do with odor that comes from the mulch piles. There is another large mulch facility very close up the road, and the bylaws for development plan standards can be met. They cross-reference the environmental controls, and they say that the environmental controls can be met by comparison or by analysis. The planning board went beyond that, and they're requiring a very thorough analysis of air quality, which isn't appropriate or required. We have a comparison to the other facility, and we haven't had any complaints for an air quality concern out of that property.
Well, I'll stop you there because I know this property has been in front of the board for a number of years, and there have been numerous complaints about odor.
There was,
I just want to add, I did receive, so when the planning board was making their decision, their normal process is they requested us to begin to draft the decision. Attorney Crowe did provide me with an email dated April 16th, 2021, with some recommended conditions to be included in that. And one of which talks about shall comply with the performance of the requirements of the bylaws of the town of Bellingham for environmental controls. And the other one talking about the applicant shall promptly respond to any complaints received under the 24050 of the zoning bylaws to prohibit offensive emissions or odorous gas and odoriferous matters. And I believe the planning board took those recommendations, incorporated them in, and then added language for an analysis, as Ms. Crowe had just mentioned, to be more proactive rather than reactive to complaints, as the town typically likes to do.
Okay.
right, and we're there. Based on the prior litigation that's taken place with this, we've had several discovery requests and different methods of making sure that anything that's happened goes back and forth. There was, I believe, one complaint from, I don't have the date in front of me, but I want to say 2014, 2015.
Yeah, because I feel
And
like
it turned out there was,
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Keep going.
sorry, it turned out it was something that wasn't mulch related at all. There was something going on closer towards the highway that happened the same day that the complaint came in.
I guess I'll open it to the board then.
I'm just going by what Jim had just reiterated with regard to the odor. And it seems to comply with what the planning board had decided.
All right, I'll move on to the next one. If there's no more questions on that one. Condition 9, there's a condition that the site shall not create a nuisance. This isn't founded anywhere in the development plan standards of the bylaws. It's ambiguous. It just doesn't have any way of knowing what the applicant is obligated to do here, nor is it based on the bylaw determinations for development plan standards.
It seems like, okay, when I look at the condition 9, it does look like it does kind of enumerate on it though. Unless I'm mistaken, because it looks like it does cite not limited to fire, explosion, fumes, gas, smoke, odors, obnoxious dust, vapors, offensive noise. Is that correct? Because it doesn't look like it is entirely, I guess you could say that a nuisance is subjective, that's a blanket statement, but it does look like it does kind of enumerate certain conditions.
Right, I think it piggybacks on the one above where, we're trying to be proactive, but if there has to be reactive, this is the manner in which it would move forward with as a violation.
Okay.
And it's clear that the town doesn't want a mulch facility in this location. That was the subject of the zoning change that took place in 2011 when mulch facilities were no longer allowed at this property. It's clear that the town would rather not have the mulch facility there. But it is there and it is a lawful non-conforming use, and the development plan standards and the conditions that are in here are essentially an attempt to put the mulch business out of business. And what they're trying to do is put in a stormwater system to service the facility. So adding conditions that there can't be a nuisance to a use that's lawfully established by its non-conforming status and giving rise to whatever that might be from a resident, from a town, and creating another avenue to try to close down the mulch facility here. That's what these conditions are, and they're well beyond the development plan application standards. And that's why we're on appeal here. And, it's why we'll end up being on appeal if the decision gets upheld again. We're trying to limit the impact of the facility on the town. And in doing that, we are continually put up to standards that are beyond a brand new business that would be trying to come into Bellingham.
Well, I just want to say that I don't think it's that we don't want a mulch business there because there was one previously. I think that we just want to be cognizant of that it's in a residential neighborhood and on a scenic road in the town. And the town and the board has worked in good faith with the applicant. That we understand your rights, but there's also, we need to balance it with the neighborhood and also just the community. So it's really not meant to be overly restrictive or put the applicant out of business. It's really just to balance those needs with the neighborhood.
So, Mr. Chairman, is the applicant's attorney arguing that because they're pre-existing non-conforming use, they have a right to be a nuisance? I mean, that's just nonsensical. They don't have a right to be a nuisance.
Well, I'd like to say that I do personally take offense because I feel the board has certainly tried to work in good faith with the applicant in previous matters and in the current situation. To argue that shows that you have no good faith to be a good neighbor in this residential neighborhood. And you might be a pre-existing non-conforming use, but that does not mean that you're insulated from everything. That doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want. So I think we need to be careful of what we're stating here. We're not, you are not pre-existing non-conforming and I can do whatever I want. You have expanded this business and there are certain things that you need to conform to. And the fact that you claim that you can just be a nuisance is outrageous, quite frankly.
Attorney Questle, that was not the argument that I was making. It comes down to what's the definition of nuisance and who's defining it and how is this going to be used against the applicant? the applicant that has not had complaints about air quality or other aspects of the business in the many years that it's been there, outside of a few amount that were either before LMP bought the property or right at the transition time, but not in the nearby time. I'm not trying to say that we are going to do whatever it is we want to do, because we have been at this process of trying to get approvals for the better part of 3 or 4 years at this point to try to put upgrades into the property. So that's certainly not the tactic that we're taking. That's not the way that they see it. That's not the way that any of us see it. But JD Raymond and LMP have been good neighbors. They've been cooperative. We did suggest a number of conditions, as Jim Kupfer had said, and we did agree that if a complaint came in, if something was wrong, we would try to fix it. But to require these thorough and complete analyses on this existing business, it just leads down the line of it's going beyond the standards of the development plan approval. It's going beyond the standards of what would even be imposed on a new business under there's a special permit aspect of the development plan, environmental control. They sort of tie together with the special permit, and that's not necessary here because we are a lawful non-conforming use. So we could have, it could have been a special permit process where we were seeking relief from various aspects of the environmental control, but that's not part of what the process is. We're trying
You
to.
are not, but you are actually challenging fire department recommendations. You are.
I am challenging the way that they are imposed as a strict line that doesn't relate to the actual way in which fires are dealt with on the property.
But it actually does, because as member Gabriel said, it's there to make sure that there's the fire lane. The fire lane is very important. This is what the fire department requested. Why would this board ever overturn the fire department? They know, stay in your lane. They know what they're doing.
We did do what the fire department requested. We put a fire lane all the way around the property. They requested that 2 years ago. And then they came back 3 months ago and said, now we want barriers around all the piles.
So I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think appreciate the comments. So noted. I think it's just kind of going around in circles that we should.
Mr. Chairman?
We've gone around in circles for 3.5 years with this.
Mr. Chairman,
I mean,
I
if this was really something.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Bellingham,
I need to apologize. I got a little heated when they claimed that they were pre-existing and they could do whatever they want and be a nuisance.
we have been trying to work with the town of Bellingham for 3.5 years to build a fence. We had a beautiful stone wall out front with a fence. We were going to do sound studies. We were going to change the traffic lanes, and we met with the town manager. We met with Jim Kupfer 3.5 years ago. Here we
Mr.
are
Chairman,
in
if you don't mind.
2021, and we've
Yes,
done
sir.
0 improvements to the property.
Yeah.
0, because
I
it's
think
all
that-
been spent on engineering and legal fees. So how can you say that you're trying to work with us?
I guess that's just the difference in a matter of,
It's opinion. It's a
I do think
$250,000
that the town
opinion.
has clearly tried to work with you, and I think that I think everyone has had the best interest to try to get a working stormwater management system going on that property, and I think that it frankly bothers me that there hasn't been an adequate stormwater management system on that property. But
Mr.
I
Chairman,
think
may I
we should
speak?
move along. Yeah, Peter, you go ahead.
Okay,
Then
so-
we'll move on to the
Yep.
next topic.
First and foremost, we are here, 2.5, 3 years ago, this could have been resolved. Different attorney, different people running the plant, at least that was who was in front of us. And you guys walked away from the board and said, we're not going to apply for anything with the planning board. And we put in a cease and desist because you weren't willing to apply for this. You appealed it, it went to court, and now you're back in front of us again. So hearing that we've been doing this for 2.5, 3 years, that's not on the board.
We were actually told to leave the meeting with the planning board. We were told to go to the planning board, present to them. We got everything together, went to the planning board, and you guys would not hear anything from us. You told us to leave. So
Thank you.
review the tapes, go back and look at it, talk to Kim. That's exactly what happened.
Okay, so we
All
do
right, yeah,
need,
let's
we
move
do
on.
need to
I'm gonna
move on,
let-
Mr. Chairman, because this is just gonna be a vicious.
Yeah, I
circle.
think this is just not productive.
Not productive at all.
Amy, can you outline for the board the scope of our review and what we're tasked to do tonight and the criteria by which we're supposed to judge this appeal?
Sure. So section 3 allows that a person aggrieved may appeal to the zoning board of appeals pursuant to sections akin to sections 40A, section 8 and 15. However, sections 8 and 15 specifically reference that if you appeal, if you have a denial from the zoning enforcement officer or the building commissioner or the building department, or you have requested relief, requested enforcement and have been denied. So this permit was approved. And so there is a question as to even, procedurally, is this the right place to be? So it most likely is not, in my opinion. However, I think that the fact that the applicant sent in draft conditions or proposed conditions, I should say, and is now somewhat going against them, is more to the merits of this. So I think that this board has to look at the fact that with the merits, what conditions are being contested, did they propose these, did they not propose these? And then we also have to keep in mind, is this the right forum for this so-called appeal?
So thank you for that. So assuming that it is, for argument's sake, the appropriate forum for the appeal, what is the criteria that for the scope of our review?
Are these conditions acceptable under the development, under 240? So.
And that would, Amy, I'm sorry, if you don't mind, that would be the planning board's conditions, correct?
Correct. They're challenging the planning board conditions, and the zoning board of appeals has to decide if those conditions were arbitrary and capricious or outside the scope.
Thank you.
So what's the feeling from the board? Do we want to move on to the other conditions, or?
I think we should afford the applicant the opportunity to present their case.
Okay.
Completely.
All right.
So should we just go through all of the rest of the conditions rather than taking them one by one?
That's what I'm wondering. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Kim, do you want to walk us through as briefly as possible, but each of the remaining conditions?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And I will say on the question of if we're in the right spot, the bylaws, when they talk about the development plan decision, say specifically, any interested party aggrieved by the development plan decision may file an appeal with the Board of Appeals. The bylaws set forth the procedure for appealing. I'll move on to the conditions. I know that the board is spending a lot of time on this, but I did want to point that out.
Okay.
So condition 10, the condition reads, the applicant shall install a timber sound barrier wall at a height no less than 8 feet from grade. Our plans show a height of 6 feet from grade. And although we're not disputing the 8-foot fence, if the ZBA doesn't strike this condition, we're requesting a finding allowing the height to be built at 8 feet. Otherwise, we would fall into a situation of needing a variance for the 8-foot fence under the bylaws.
Okay.
Condition 11 is a noise study. This is, I'll try to keep this brief because I don't want to go into the same tailspin that we had. The noise study, we had presented noise readings that were taken along the property. We are proposing a sound wall to cut down on the noise. The noise as presented didn't violate the environmental controls. The planning board during the hearing process had asked the applicant to have there was essentially a peer review to take a look at what we presented for our sound study, and the peer reviewer came back and said, you need a acoustical sound analysis, which is nowhere in the bylaws and isn't part of what the development plan standards are. It's just nothing, it goes beyond what the bylaws allow for, and it goes beyond what's imposed on new businesses coming in. We're objecting to that ambient analysis as opposed to the sound readings, which was the method of study that is called for, and also the environmental controls don't even necessarily require a study because they also can be met by comparison to other facilities. I can move on, or if you want to have questions at that point, either way is fine.
I think just move on. You think, Art?
Yes, I do.
I think so. Yep.
Okay, condition 18, the planning board limited the hours on the business. The earlier of 6 p.m. or dusk, and a lot of that discussion during the hearing came into whether or not there were lights on the facility, and the 6 p.m. or dusk just even further limits what the hours of operation can be, because obviously in the summer there's light later on, and in the winter there's a much shorter day that's allowed. So where the hours that were imposed go beyond what's talked about in the noise regulations and other aspects of the bylaw. Let's see, condition 20, as required by the Bellingham DPW, any and all access and utility easements that may be necessary should be in a form. It's not clear what easements are being referred to, and so that's the reason for the objection to that condition. Condition 22, the use shall be limited to storage, processing, and distribution of bulk products, including mulch, and any change of use or increase of intensity may require a public hearing. That's condition is ambiguous and duplicative in that that's similar and not exactly the same as the situation that we're in currently as a lawful non-conforming use. If there is a change or substantial increase in use, then that triggers the aspects of the non-conforming use bylaw. And so we're saying it doesn't need to be a condition. It's already called for as far as how the business is operated, and it just creates additional ambiguity.
But why does it create ambiguity? What's the difference?
Because it's not clear. There's an established body of law on what triggers a change in use under 40A.
But this is
There's
stormwater.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Wouldn't a change of use impact the stormwater?
If there needed to be something that limited it more towards the stormwater, that could be something that we could consider. But the condition, the way that it's stated, as far as creating confusion as far as what standard applies to the operation at their location on the property.
Okay. Thank you for being brief for each of the conditions. I think I'll just open up to the board for discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I suppose I'm a little confused, and it's not hard for me to be confused. This is for bulk storage and distribution. And earlier in the presentation, Will made it clear that they were manufacturing. Is manufacturing a by right use of this property? Or are we actually storing and distribution? It's the first time I've heard the words manufacture in all the meetings over the past 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah.
The use, it was a bulk storage use from 2000, and I think the zoning changed in the fall of 2011.
I'm aware of that, but now I'm hearing manufacturing.
It was a use as of right before the zoning changed. It has always been the same use of moving the mulch around and treating it and getting it ready for distribution.
How's the word processing instead of manufacturing? We haven't changed what we've done there. So it's still the same processes. It's processing wood chips and making mulch. It's the same thing. We're not hiding anything.
What is the, do you know, Jim, as far as the actual by right use? Is it, it doesn't allow manufacturing, does it allow processing?
Well, so the original underlying zoning was industrial, so industrial uses include manufacturing. So currently it is suburban zone, so any alteration to those uses that were being conducted would be an extension, or if adding a use would be an extension of uses, which would bring you back to this board.
I guess that's not what we're tasked for tonight.
No.
So I guess we'll just get back to that.
Yes.
Yeah, I suppose my other question would be, as a board, we're looking at, was it appropriate for the planning board's decision? Are we gonna go line item by line item or in bulk?
So if I may say that I am in agreement with the planning board's conditions, I don't think that they are out of line in any way. They seem to be reasonable. If everyone wants to take a by line, that's fine, but I'm in agreement with Brian.
I'm in agreement with you, Artie. I think that was Artie.
No, I'm in agreement as well. I don't find anything to be capricious or unnecessary or overly burdensome. It all seems to be in line with what we've been trying to do to maintain the site. So I don't know, I guess I'll leave it to other board members. If other board members want to voice any other comments, or if they'd like to point out a line by line item, they can.
Is this something we have to open to the public, or do we close the hearing?
I think we do, right? Is there any other comment then from the board?
I'm good.
Okay, I guess I'll open it to the public. If there's anyone, any abutters or anyone else that wants to speak on this, just say your name and address. Okay, is there anything on Zoom? Nothing. Okay,
Motion to close the hearing.
Second,
all those in favor?
Aye.
Discussion?
I think I've stated the way I feel is that I agree with the planning board with all the conditions.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion then?
Motion to deny the appeal. Is that how it would be worded, Jim?
To uphold the planning board's decision and deny the appeal.
Yes.
is that the motion on the table?
Yes.
I'll second that, Arthur.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Amy, is that sufficient, or do we need to make any sort of
Yes.
findings?
That is. That, no, that I think that Art said it prior to his motion, that he felt that the conditions were reasonable.
Yes.
And I will say that there was a lengthy review of the application and the issues of noise and odor, the visual aspect of the property from the road, discussions about site flow. There was testimony taken from the fire chief about, and there were discussions about what was an appropriate application of the,
There were also discussions regarding whether the appeal was proper before this forum or not.
there certainly is a nexus between everything that was presented.
Yep.
to the board and to the decision, I think, that was rendered. And, there was discussion of the odor that was emanating from the site, and that there were complaints that were part of the public record, part of the discussions that were made, and how far that odor does travel, and other considerations like that, and also with the sound. So I do think that there's a sufficient nexus between what was in the decision in light of what the applicant proposed in terms of their own suggested conditions, that, it's a reasonable decision in light of all of those facts.
Okay.
All right, vote.
Yep, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, that passes. All right, thank you.
Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. All right, and thank town council too, Amy, for.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll see you guys soon.
We'll move on to the next item. Continuation public hearing for 206 Mechanic Street. Jim?
All right, so it's been a little while since we've seen the applicants from 206 Mechanic Street, but they're here tonight in person. In your package, you do have an update of the application from Vanessa Associates, which shows a traffic impact assessment dated July 27, 2021. And I believe the applicant also has some items they can show you.
Good evening. I guess, Jim, just a procedural. Should I log on to Zoom and share that way?
Yeah, you
Or
can.
should I
You
use
can,
boards or-
yeah, so I just let you in. So if you want to do that, if you have a good connection, you can do it that way.
Either way, if it's already on
It's
here.
already on there, but you probably, I don't have the PDFs on there yet. I don't know if you got it on a flash drive or not.
No, let me try doing this real quick, but I want to just start with, frankly, I don't need to show the plan.
Oh, you got muted.
Yep, I just did that. So thank you for the time this evening. It's been a few months since we've been before you. At the last meeting that we had a couple months back, the focus of that meeting really was about traffic.
Can you, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
just my memory, could you state your name again?
I apologize. John Cusick with Bowler Engineering.
Okay,
And we're here with the whole project team as well. I have Derek Roach next to me who's filling in for Sean Kelly. Sean was unable to make it this evening. Sean's a traffic engineer, if you recall. Paul Feldman and Dwayne Finnegan are here as well.
okay.
So at the last hearing, we spoke a lot about traffic at that point. And really, I'd just like to start the meeting by saying, coming out of last meeting, we presented what we thought made sense, talked about easements and things along those lines. We made it loud and clear that the board was hoping to get something more than that. So we're before you this evening. The applicant is committed to providing a increase to the turn lane that exists today on Maple Street. Maple Street currently has 75-foot turn lane, and that's the issue. Cars can't get past it because it blocks up. We're increasing that to 230 feet to allow the intersection to operate the way it was intended to, not the way it does. By doing that, what you'll hear from Derek, the presentation more detailed I'm giving right now, is with the proposed development in place and constructed, the traffic will be better than it is now because of this improvement. So Derek will get into that detail and show you how that will work out. After traffic, since that was the focus, we did speak at length prior to the last meeting, talked about the overall project and the benefits of the project and how we thought it fit in with that intersection. I will go over that in just brief detail and answer any additional questions because it has been a while. But at this point, what I would like to do is turn it over to Derek to go through his analysis.
So, did you get my PowerPoint? Did you send in my PowerPoint?
Yeah,
Or
let
do
me
you have it?
try to share. We're doing it this way. They did send that off.
So I do have a flash drive.
Yeah, if you have a flash drive, by all means, put that right on there.
So I need to share my screen here, or is it already sharing? Sure.
Perfect. All right, thank you, guys. Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Derek Roach. I'm a professional engineer in Massachusetts and a senior transportation engineer with Manassas Associates. Sean Kelly was here at the previous meetings for this project, and he has caught me up with what happened during those meetings. So I'm intimately familiar with the goings on, and I can speak to the project. So we did receive some comments from the board about the traffic analysis that we had conducted. We took those comments, we integrated those comments into our analysis, we ran a new analysis. And so I'm going to go through the changes that we made and how those changes affected the results of the study. So the first comment that we got was related to the traffic volumes that we used. We had conducted counts VAI in April 21 in 2021. Obviously that was during COVID. So the board was concerned about particularly the volumes on Route 140 being higher pre-COVID. So luckily there were some counts conducted by Beta for a functional design report for the intersection of Route 140 at Maple Street. That report was done in April 2017 and revised in October 17. So those are pre-COVID counts. And so what we did was we took the higher volume for each movement of the different counts. And what that led to was an increase of 335 vehicle trips per hour, vehicles per hour in the weekday morning peak hour compared to our previous analysis, and 65 more vehicle trips in the weekday evening peak hour compared to our previous analysis. The second concern from the board was related to the trip generation that we used. We are proposing a 124,200 square foot warehouse. The Institute of Transportation Engineers has a land use code for warehousing. As you can see in the table here, that indicates 21 weekday morning peak hour trips and 24 weekday evening peak hour trips. In our initial study, we were conservative and we used the general light industrial land use code, which indicates approximately 4 times the trips that the warehouse does in the weekday morning peak hour and 3 times in the weekday evening peak hour. The board wanted us to use the highest trip generating land use code for warehousing that ITE has, or the Institute of Transportation Engineers has. As you can see here, the last column, that indicates 108 weekday morning peak hour trips, 149 weekday evening peak hour trips. So that's what we ran with in this new study. It's 6 times what ITE expects a warehouse to produce in the weekday evening peak hour. But so we took we took the higher volumes, we took the higher trip generation, we took the mitigation, which I was talking about here. As you can see on here, this is the right turn pocket that's been being talked about on Maple Street southbound. It gets blocked. As you guys know, you can't get in there. So it's effectively a 2-lane approach, right? We ran the build condition with the mitigation included, our site volumes plus the mitigation. So when I refer to the analysis, I refer to the no build in the build. The build includes the mitigation. So with the updated analysis, we show that the weekday morning peak hour condition, the level of service, and the no build condition was a D. And the build condition remains at level of service D. The weekday evening peak hour, the level of service overall for the intersection is E under no build, and it improves to level of service D under build. And with the higher trip generation that we're using, the 6 times what would be expected from ITE, in my professional opinion, the level of service D is pretty close to level of service C. It's 41 seconds of delay. Level of service C is 35 seconds of delay. So I would expect that would be a level of service C in reality with the improvements. So in summary, I'll just quickly go back over what I just said here. We use the higher traffic volumes from the two different sets of counts. We use the highest generating ITE land use code for warehousing that again is 6 times higher than the weekday evening in the weekday evening peak hour than what you would typically use for land use code for ITE for warehousing. And with both of those conservative conditions incorporated into the analysis, we still show an improvement to the level of service in the weekday evening peak hour from LOSE to LOSD. And in reality, that's probably a level of service C. So with that, I turn it back over to you, or do I ask for questions now?
Yeah, I think,
I think there'll be questions.
so let's focus on the traffic questions. And then
Or what do you, I guess, how does it compare then to the analysis from the previous meeting? Because you were saying with those levels of like a level D or an E.
Right, so the difference with the comparing to the previous analysis is we ran the previous analysis as a 3-lane approach under the no build,
Yeah,
right? And so it's not an apples to apples comparison, but it was a level, I believe it was a level of service D that then with the mitigation improvement became a level of service C. But I have the thing right here, so I can actually pull that out. I'm sorry. Original study.
I mean, I guess let me just say that we, I'm sure the rest of the board, but we appreciate the mitigation for adding that turning lane.
Because
I
he
think it's
didn't have
definitely
the
gonna be a
tables.
benefit.
Yeah, that was what we had heard. kind of
So-
loud and clear.
Yeah, the results of the capacity analysis previously showed that the weekday morning peak hour operated at level of service C and continued to operate level of service C under build conditions. And it was level of service C and then went to level of service D under build conditions. But that was probably without the mitigation at the time. And again, it's not an apples to apples comparison because the no build wasn't set up the same way as it was in this analysis in response to the concerns of the board in that approach doesn't operate properly. And so we modeled it not operating properly.
But I guess it shows just what the difference is when you go to that, the regular warehouse versus the Amazon, that kind of high level.
It's 6 times. I mean,
Yeah.
it's- And
What
this.
is a high cube fulfillment center warehouse as opposed to a regular warehouse?
Well, so one of the conditions that ITE states for a high cube warehouse first is the size. And we don't meet the size requirement for that land use code. They 200,000 square feet or higher. We're about half of that. So that's one of the things. The other thing is it's more similar to what you get from an Amazon sorting facility, versus a typical warehouse. That's what that land use code is for. High volume, delivering day of sort of packages like Amazon does, which is not what is proposed here.
So I don't know, and I'm sure you probably get this, but I don't know if you can answer it. What does that mean in terms of people want to know, like, how will that affect like my morning commute or evening commute with the warehouse? I guess in the scenarios that you played out.
And well, we ran the higher land use code in the analysis, right? And so we're showing an improvement, even with the higher generating land use code. So with our mitigation, it means better traffic for you.
If I may ask you, so I'm looking at table 2 here. So you have the no build under at 2028, the year 2028, and then the unmitigated build at 2028, but then with the mitigated, you're using 2022. Is there a reason for the difference in years where you're looking, 6 years ahead for the no build and unmitigated, but then when you're looking at mitigated, you're using 2022 versus 2028? So when you're
I am gonna assume that is a typo.
So to me, just looking at
That
this,
is supposed to be 2028 build mitigated, not 2022.
okay, just wanted to confirm because that would be a big difference.
Yeah,
That's a
Um,
good question.
And my concern would be for the Route 140 eastbound, the right turn, the TH and the right turn. It's already at an F. It's going to be already at an F, which is unacceptable, I assume. And that only has a delay, an additional delay of one, is that seconds, the 83, 82 and 83, is that just a 1 second delay due to the addition of this warehouse?
That is correct. That's all we're showing here. Is 1 additional second of delay for the through right movement eastbound on Route 140 due to the project traffic volumes.
Okay. Is that's pretty straightforward in terms of looking at where it's coming from. None of the trucks are gonna create any delay. 1 second seems very minuscule. I'm just paying attention to the worst intersection here, and that would be it, the worst turn.
Right.
And it's
That's
barely affected
right.
based on this analysis.
That's correct.
Those are the two main things.
And then just to reiterate that it is important, it really, the way we ran it does show the volume 6 times higher than what we anticipated to be.
Right.
Just to be conservative.
Mr. Chairman.
Cell phone. Go ahead, Peter.
Just first of all, thank you very much for what you've done. Greatly appreciate it. I have a couple questions. One is you used a 2017 analysis and a April 2021 COVID analysis. I don't believe that April 2017, I think that's the month, included Amazon trucks. So maybe something we want to consider. In all your studies, how many tractor trailers per hour are we going to see at this intersection added? You say trips, but how many tractor trailers? Because it makes a big difference there.
Yeah, we didn't run the trip generation for the truck separately here. In my experience, warehouse facilities are somewhere between 10 and 15% of the trips are truck trips. We can get that number from the ITE. That we just don't have it here.
Well, that's fine. And I mean, if you've ever dealt with the intersection personally in a vehicle, the tractor trailers make a mess that intersection.
Right.
And with that being said, I greatly appreciate extending the right-hand turn lane. It makes a difference. But my concern, believe it or not, wasn't the right-hand turn. It was the left-hand turn for the tractor trailers. Because you get 1 tractor per light go through there. And if you're adding 2, 3, 4 tractor trailers an hour, it's that left-hand turn lane that messes that whole intersection up. If that makes sense to you. You can't get to the right-hand turn because the left-hand turn lane is too short for the tractor trailers. Does that make sense?
Oh, because the tractor trailers are going to 495, correct?
Yeah, the tractor trailers have got it's a decent lane. I mean, it's good size, but it's not big enough. And now we're gonna add more tractor trailers. That right-hand lane is always gonna be empty because you can't get to it. Because the tractor trailers back Maple Street up.
Yeah, because they're all gonna be making the left.
But that's why we extended.
Right.
The
Did I
right
see
hand
that
lane
you
to
did
get
extend?
to it.
Yeah.
Could you go
Oh,
back
I
to
see.
the,
Okay.
could you go
I
back to the,
can go back to the picture here.
Yeah.
So we're extending this, the 75 feet ends around
did
here,
you get
Yeah.
that thing?
right? And,
Oh, yeah, you got a little thing on the screen.
that's not me. It's not on my screen here.
Let me try.
And I mean, if you're looking at your existing picture you have up on your screen, and again, I applaud you guys for what you're doing.
Thanks, John.
Where's your exit gonna be? Is that gonna be up where the R3-8 is?
It's gonna be beyond that.
Beyond that, okay.
Get further up.
How long have
And-
you, how long have you, how greater have you extended that left-hand turn lane?
The right-hand turn lane?
No, left. The left one.
I
Peter's
don't-
saying the left-hand turn lane is.
Right, I don't believe we've extended the left-hand turn lane at all.
You haven't extended the left-hand turn
Not the
lane?
left, no.
Just the
that's-
right.
It's the right.
Oh, that's the one Peter's talking about. That's terrible, the left-hand turn lane.
Yeah. So I mean, the reality is your tractors, and I'm not blaming you for the tractors you're bringing in. I mean, it's business. They're gonna come out onto the street, add in the Amazon trucks and everything else. And you're not gonna get to that right-hand turn lane because everyone's trying to get that left-hand turn to get out of town.
Well, I guess what
Right.
they did is they extended it for far
They gotta
enough
extend the
back.
left-hand turn lane though. Brian,
Yeah.
that's the one that's the big problem is the left.
That's the one that causes the problem.
The Q analysis doesn't show that the queue exceeds the left-hand turn bay.
That doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah, and I think part of what might be happening there, though, is since you can't get into the right-hand turn lane, all that additional traffic is stacking up. Right,
You're
so
wrong. No, that's not correct. It is the left-hand turn lane that's causing the problem. You get two trailer trucks there and you can't get into the right-hand turn. It's the left-hand turn lane that's screwing everything up.
It is. You can't get into, if you got 2 or 3 trucks there, you can't get to the through lane in the middle. Because they block up. Oh, I've seen them pass your proposed entrance here. And I mean, is it all, I'm not saying it's your fault, because I think the light has an issue as well. Because
Yeah,
it lets 1 truck per light go through.
that's it. You can only get one trailer truck through and the light changes, and that's.
Yes. So to have,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm sorry to throw egg at what you're doing, because I greatly appreciate what you're doing, trust me. Would we be better fit to make it not shorter than now, but not extend the right-hand turn lane as much and give us more depth on the left-hand turn lane? For flow, I mean, you guys are the traffic experts, but that's just my humble opinion.
Yeah, the analysis tells me that adding the right, extending the right turn lane really helps improve the intersection. And that the left turn lane isn't an issue,
Really?
so.
The analysis, I don't agree with the
Yeah,
analysis.
I think.
I don't either, sir.
Part of what's happening, I understand what you're saying. I live in this area. I'm very familiar with this intersection as well. But when a track,
Well, you ought to know that then.
no, I drive through there. I'm familiar
Okay.
with this intersection. So what happens, cars, if a truck gets there, it's gonna block. But the truck's there, you can't get into the right-hand lane. So the cars that were gonna go right, they can't get there. So it then backs up behind the truck and it compounds. So by extending the right-hand turn lane, it allows cars to continue moving past it. So only the people going left will then be in that lane. So right now you're having everybody kind of backing
Well,
up.
let me explain my experience, because I live right off of Maple Street. There's never a problem with the right-hand turn lane. It's always a problem with the left-hand turn lane. That's where the issue is, not with the right-hand turn lane. That's where your queue is wrong. It's the left-hand turn lane that's the problem. Do you agree, Peter?
Oh, wholeheartedly. And the only time that doesn't be the issue is when we have a parade of Amazon ants going to the gas station. I mean, we can't control that.
Yeah.
But even before that was in place, 90% of the time you're hitting that intersection, you're going left, go 495. And it's that left-hand turn lane that's actually the issue. I humbly believe if you kind of did the opposite of what you're proposing, you probably leave the traffic quite a bit.
I agree.
Mr. Chairman, can I introduce myself? My name is Paul Thum and I represent the applicant. I was at the last hearing. I got to tell you, what I heard from all the members of the board was that the right-hand turn lane was too short.
You misunderstood as well, because
So that's
Peter,
correct.
because Peter made it specific that it was a left-hand
I
turn lane.
understand. I understand. I misunderstood it and so did Vanessa.
Okay.
We sat there and listened and we listened to Peter. And
That was a mistake.
I could have sworn he said that right turn lane is too short. You got to take a look at that. And then we said we would study it. Now we're hearing tonight, no, it's not the right, it's the left. One of the things that's an important clarification. One of the things that we know, because we talked to the Department of Transportation about this intersection, was that there may very well be a need to do a timing analysis on the lights to improve that intersection. And we expect that and we know that, and we're prepared to participate in doing that timing analysis, because I think that when we've exhaustively looked at this intersection in the last 2 months, and I asked the question myself to Vanessa, is the left turn queue long enough? And every analysis they have, it is. Now, if it's not long enough, because only one truck is going through on the light cycle, that's a timing, that's a light cycle issue. That's not the physical length of the queue.
Except that if there's 2 trailer trucks there, that's it, that's the length.
Well,
That's not long enough as well. If there's more than 2 trailer trucks, you don't have enough room for the left-hand turn lane either.
Do you know the left, Derek, do you happen to know the length of the left queue? Because I
don't, but we could probably measure it.
Because I thought it was something like 140 feet or something like that.
That's 3 tractor trailers.
I'm sorry.
That's like three, but
It
please don't.
probably is three, but two or three, that's not the point.
Yeah.
What we're trying to say is that, you know, and we can do this another way. We've committed mitigation dollars to extend the right turn lane. We're talking about mitigation dollars. I don't even remember the exact amount. It's like $250,000 or something like that, just to do that.
Yeah,
One item.
I believe so.
If, you know, we're trying to be productive. We don't need to spend $250,000 on a right turn extension if you guys don't think that's the problem. We'll spend $50,000 on something that you guys think is the problem. Well, let's go fix that. So,
I'll be very upfront with you, sir. That's why my first statement to you was thank you very much.
Right.
And I think we're on the right track. It's a matter of making sure which track it's on, left or right, if you understand what I mean.
so
And I greatly appreciate everything you're doing, trust me.
So what we're trying to say as the applicant is, we're here asking for a variance. We appreciate what a variance means. We're here to try to respond to mitigation concerns.
Okay.
We're here with a real budget to do that. And we thought mistakenly, obviously, that based on our analysis, that it was the right turn lane that was the issue. But to advance the process, because for my client, but this is where we find ourselves now, 6 months into this and tens of thousands of dollars into this, we really need to understand, is this a project that the board wants to see happen? And the way to perhaps proceed in the most productive way is that if the board is inclined to grant the variance, you can condition the variance that there'll have to be traffic mitigation, you know, done in collaboration with the engineering department and Vanessa, that the applicant has committed traffic mitigation up to $250,000. And you know that buys the extension of the right side. So you know that that's it. If it turns out, no, it really is that. And we got to do the timing of the lights to fix the left side. Maybe it's that combination of things. But rather than try to get it right now, we are going to be in front of the planning board on site plan review where traffic is going to get exhaustively addressed again. And we can, you know, once we know this is a use that the town finds acceptable because this board has granted a variance, it's much easier for us to say, okay, now we keep on studying this. And by the time we get to the planning board, we can get a more definite condition. But our point is we're willing to commit a condition to this board so that you know we're ready to mitigate. And by the time we get site plan review with the planning board, that mitigation could probably get spelled out with specificity. But I don't want to try to, what I want to try to avoid is keep on, you know, trying to figure that out here when it's the planning board site plan review process that is most likely the better environment because they're constantly dealing with site plan review issues and impacts of the site on the infrastructure to the community. So if that can help advance us, I don't want to get too hung up on the mitigation. I'd rather get focused on the commitment, the dollar commitment that we're making to engage in mitigation. And I will tell you that dollar commitment for a project of this size is really substantial. We had to figure that out, how we can make this pro forma work with that kind of mitigation. And we concluded that it works. And Wayne Finnegan is here from Howland Development to speak to that issue if you'd like, but enough. I'm trying to be productive in advance.
You always like to talk, but the same thing, I understand and I appreciate all that, but on the other hand, I hate kicking the can down the road again. You know, we're here for the zoning board to try to iron out these issues before it gets to the planning board. So that's all I have to say.
All right, May, I just feel like that's the main issue with having an increase in the traffic in that area. You only have so much lane to work with for the left turn. You're limited behind that.
I'm measuring it out, just so people know. They asked earlier, it's around 300 feet.
Yeah, but if that's not gonna work, I don't see how we can, ensure that the residents around us, around that area, will not be affected in terms of quality of life, in terms of going around to work. I use that intersection but from the other side, I know that if you're gonna change the lighting sequence, that's gonna affect the other side, which also is already suffering.
Well, there's a whole metric that they
Right,
use for the lighting sequence.
Oh, it's the Q system. I understand. I'm not gonna get into that point, but I feel like it is a very important issue in terms of considering this.
I guess my response would be this. The state and the town just spent globs of money creating a new intersection here. Studied the hell out of it and built this. It doesn't work. You guys say it doesn't work. I take that. Doesn't work. We're coming in with a project that is a relatively benign traffic use. I understand we're doing this high Q volume. There is not a high Q distribution facility tenant will not go into 125,000 square foot building. So we've created this fiction that our project is creating a lot of traffic. It's not. But you got a problem with this intersection. We're trying to help with that. We really are. And we're taking the opportunity with our project to try to help that. I think what you guys are confronted with is a simple question. If you deny the variance, which you certainly have a right to do, I've said it to you last time, that's okay. Howland Development's going to move on somewhere else, and one day, could be a year from now, it could be 5 years from now, someone will come back for another project, and you'll talk about this intersection again. But for the next 5 years, you're going to have a dysfunctional intersection because that's what you're living with now. The one potential positive is that if we move forward with our project and we have the commitment of mitigation funds, you'll be able to at least try to improve that intersection now. Will we improve it so that it works as much as everyone would like? We all suffer from traffic everywhere? Probably not. Will we improve it so it functions better than it does today? That I'm confident we will be able to do. And if it turns out that it's not on the right side that we need to extend, it's on the left side. If you do a timing analysis, we realize there's a flaw in that left turn signal. I mean, whatever the fix is, it doesn't work and it takes money to try to fix it. That's the best we can do. That's the best my client can do. And it's really up to the board to decide, is that good enough or not? And we'll respect the outcome. Either way, we're going to respect the outcome, but we need to ask the board to give us the outcome. That's the problem. I'm not trying to kick the can down the road, but it's too difficult, too much soft cost, too many months at this to not have an answer. We just can't keep on going on it, just being upfront.
So, no, I mean, I would like to say it's definitely appreciated, the offering of funds for mitigation. And I guess that's something the board.
We'll offer work. I'm not trying to say here's money. We'll do the work, but what I'm just trying to do is bracket and show you the magnitude of mitigation. And then again, it can get further studied and we can collaborate. And we could, the town can have a review consultant help figure out what's the fix to this intersection. And then we can actually perform what the fix is. We're just putting some dollars around. That's all.
So I guess I'm just thinking, which is good, is like you're saying about, however, to move the process, that at least this way it gives the board that we could condition funds to be used at the discretion to help with the intersection. I guess the other question would be, so as you're saying, you're not open to say, let's look into a left-hand turn analysis at a continuation of the next meeting. You're saying you'd rather,
I think that's
your client is saying at this point, with the time that's already passed, that you're
Right,
ready, you're willing to commit these funds.
right. We're willing to commit the fund because part of the problem is because I've spent hours on the phone with Finesse and we talked about the left turn. And we talked about the length of the left turn at 300 feet. And everybody keeps on saying that's an adequate design. And it was designed that way at 300 feet. The people who designed it thought it was adequate. And we run the numbers and it still shows it being adequate. Your experience is it's not adequate. You don't care what the study says. I get it. The experience, the hard knocks experience is more important than the analysis. I understand it. It's not working. But we're not going to be able to figure that one out. by the next meeting. This is a bigger issue to understand. Maybe there's gonna have to be a more thorough observation and assessment of how the intersection is functioning. Maybe we're gonna find out that the first thing you gotta do is let's analyze the light timing, let's adjust the light timing, see how the intersection works, then let it operate for a month, and then figure out what the fix is. I'm just trying to say this is, I think, really figuring out the best use of the dollars is gonna take time and study. And that's not something that we can do in the abstract anymore. That's all I'm trying to say.
No, and I'll just say that your client has certainly shown good faith working with the town, and I guess with that, then I'll open it to Brian.
I just had a question for Jim. Is, when they go in front of the planning board, is that a site plan review or is it a special permit?
Right, so it's, I mean, he's referring to site plan because that's most towns call it site plan, but it would be multiple permits. It would be development plan, there'd be a major business complex special permit. Potentially some other special permits depending on the final submission.
So, I mean, within that context,
Including traffic, and that's,
Yeah, traffic will have to be in there.
right, so
Yes.
in these hearings, we've heard from the applicant's traffic engineer. In the planning board process, there'll be a peer review of what he's saying and what their analysis is. We don't have the benefit of that.
That was gonna be my comment, was to ask you and then maybe Jim about that. I imagine it is a process similar to what they're saying. And I mean, that's a good point, that regardless of what which I mean, obviously you've, done, these analysis, and, it's definitely helpful to see what the worst case scenario, but either way, we would always want to see the peer review, our own town peer review, to see their comments. So
Yeah.
we're never really, if we keep going in these circles with their engineer, we're never going to resolve the problem here. We're going to need our own peer review and go through the.
Yeah,
planning board.
and that's really beyond, I think, beyond the scope of the zoning board. But I can.
I agree with that, Brian, because I mean, the applicants in front of us for a variance, obviously traffic's concerned, we brought it up. There is a commitment to do mediation for traffic. I think we need to focus on the actual variance and then allow the planning board to work with the specific engineers and traffic studies. That's just my opinion.
So
I
if
think-
we go to, if we draft a favorable condition and we make conditions, to me, it seems reasonable that they give a dollar amount they're willing to give towards mitigation of that intersection. And then also, I don't know if we make a condition, can we condition that there's further analysis as to the issues with the left turn and lane? I mean, could that be something?
I would imagine, I can tell you that all of the issues that everyone identified is the elephant in the room for this. When you have trucks crossing lanes and getting into the left lane, and if they all leave at the same time, how many trucks are doing that, all of that stuff. I mean, I think I said it from the very first, this is couldn't have been a more sensitive traffic area to build a facility like this in town. So it's going to be a big deal for the planning board to figure this stuff out and to have an engineer. I know that we talked about it before about trying to alleviate some of the tension that's in that intersection by removing the barrier between a related parcel, so those cars can travel back and forth. I know that will be a big concern for the planning board if this were to go past this, but the practical reality of this hearing is if we don't allow the variance, they can go forward with a much uglier
Yes.
proposal, right? So they don't have to move the truck. Okay, maybe the planning board makes them shrink their building so that they can hide everything. So but the practical reality is that we just get a much uglier process, an uglier building that is not as aesthetic for that.
so shall we move on to any other issues that they want to bring up, the height, et cetera?
Sure, I guess the other issue, since we're talking about traffic, I guess if we want to if you can give an update as to how we have had that ask that Brian alluded to across the street between the two parcels, if there's been any movement. Yeah, can you state your name and all?
Yes, Ed Moore. Supposed to be Bellingham on the property owner.
Although,
I think you're referring
is
to.
this, should I wait till we finish discussion or is it okay? to open?
Oh, no, he's the property.
No,
Oh,
you-
okay, sorry.
you brought up
Okay.
the cut through across the street. I'd like to
Oh, yeah,
address it.
sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I have 3 letters that I'd like to read into the minutes if there's somebody keeping minutes. I'm not- but, Okay, the first one is from Amber and Amber PC. Says, dear, I don't know if you got these in your packets or not. Says, dear sirs and madam, this correspondence has been requested by BAF Realty Trust, the owner of the property at 206 Mechanic Street. An issue which has been raised by Mr. Kupfer and the zoning board of appeals during the hearing process for this proposed development has been the request that any approval of the project be tied to the allowance of the proposed cut-through access allowing traffic to flow between 2 commercial plazas located 191 Mechanic Street and the gas station convenience store at 207 Mechanic Street. Conditioning the approval of this warehouse at 206 Mechanic Street cannot and should not be conditional by such a request. The commercial plaza located at 191 is owned by 191 Mechanic Street LLC. The gas station convenience store is owned by 207 Mechanic Street, is owned by Four Corners Realty Trust, a Massachusetts Real Estate Trust. Further, there is a tenant under long-term lease on the parcel that has significant rights and with respect to the property, which could be adversely impacted by the proposed cut-through access. The subject parcel 206 Mechanic Street is owned by DAS Realty Trust, Massachusetts Realty Trust. Each parcel is owned by a distinct legal entity. If this cut-through condition were made a condition of the warehouse project approval, it would be invalid as neither of the owners of the property have the authority or ability to comply with this. Further, the 191 Mechanic Street LLC and Four Corners could be required to comply with such a provision. According to any conditions sought by the town of Bellingham must be legitimately tied to the proposal before it and be within the power and owner or applicant to complete. Now, that property, in order to do that, would require either a right of way or trying to think of the other word. An easement, either an easement or a right of way. It's private property. You can't tell somebody, I'm gonna go in your backyard and make you do this. It's a separate process. Now, I have another letter here. This is from Sergeant Lee Rolls, Safety Officer for the town of Bellingham. He met with Mr. Kupfer. Says, thank you for meeting with me this morning with regards to the proposed access road between Rapid Refill and PJ's Plaza on Mechanic Street. I believe the access road wouldn't solve any of the problems in the area concerning traffic. My opinion is that it would add traffic to an already congested, busy parking lot with too much foot traffic to safely sustain any more intersecting vehicles. The location for diesel pumps forces tractor trailers and large box trucks to wait in line along the border of the property, which would block the access road from entering. This could also affect the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through. We have also been talking about installing islands and traffic calming measures on to limit the amount of vehicles on Mechanic Street and to Maple Street. This would cause more cars to use the parking lot as a cut through to get to South Maple Street. So he doesn't recommend it. Then I also have, these are the accident reports. I'll just read the front cover letter if you want. I have them all here. This one is dated, these accident reports are from 2018 to 2021, up until June of 2021. Okay, these are the motor vehicle crash reports that you requested in 2018, 2019, 2020, and up to June of 2021. These reports pertain to the crashes between the main entrance of the plaza to the intersection of Mechanic Street and Maple Street. 2018 was 14 crashes, 2019, 14 crashes, 2020, 8 crashes. Since they redid the intersection, there's been tremendously less accidents. January 2021 until June 14th, 2021, was 7 crashes. The second motor vehicle crash study was done concerning parking lot crashes in the plaza and rapid refill parking lots from January 1st, 2018 to January 14th, 2021. There's 13 parking lot crashes reported within the parking lots. So how can you add an intersection, which is going to have technically 2 intersections? Everybody's going to be flying through, cut through, trucks are coming in. It doesn't make sense.
So
Thank you.
If I just, I would agree that the zoning board and the planning board certainly can condition a separate legal entity in this process for sure, but there is common ownership of those entities, and there is an opportunity for some so imaginative thinking and an opportunity perhaps to come up with a creative solution to a traffic problem that would only, that mitigation may be far cheaper than what other mitigation the planning board might have to determine to make that intersection improve. And so there's an opportunity there for all parties that have an interest in this project to work together to make this a better intersection. So I do think there's an
Who would
opportunity.
accept the responsibility for the accidents?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, when these accidents happen and the lawsuits come up, will they come back to the zoning board and say, hey, you made this happen? You created this problem on private property?
I
I
suspect
don't
there
know of
would,
any parking lots where 2 separate businesses are connected.
Walmart.
That's one parcel,
Yeah.
one developer. That was one developer, one parcel. I was in Framingham on Union Avenue. I had to go from my doctor's office, Framingham Hospital. It was only 4 or 5 block spaces up, so I walked. Every parking lot I walked through had a walk-through, but not a drive-through, because everyone was a separate business and they didn't want that liability.
I'm just saying that there's probably cost-effective means and opportunities here that the town has tried to pursue for years, and they're actually gonna pay to have it done. We have another developer willing to pay to have it done. And I just hope that that opportunity isn't lost in this process.
Well,
Because this is a
This
very
is not gonna happen. So if you're gonna deny anything based on this, I want that written into decision.
we
as to
couldn't
why.
do that.
And now, when I was on the zoning board, we wrote individual decisions. Each member had to write his decision. Then they compiled them to a board decision. That way, when it went to court, and the judge was looking at it, he could see what everybody was thinking, why he voted this way, why he voted that way. Do you still do that? Is that still a process? I don't know when that ended. Yes,
Yeah, we have one decision.
one decision.
Yeah.
And then when you left it, yes.
It ended when I left, probably. I think a lot of things ended when I left.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, one other thing. Extending the right-hand turn lane, in essence, extends the left turn lane. Left turn lane's middle of the road. How do you extend the middle of the road? If you extend the right side, make it wider, that makes it better in the left lane at the same time. Might not make it ideal, but it has to help.
You know, on behalf of the applicant, we stepped into a minefield with this business with the shopping center across the street. We had no clue, we have no understanding of there's a long history, obviously, associated with it. So I need to ask on behalf of the applicant, again, it's not fair to the applicant that if there is a belief that there's never gonna be a project here unless the town is gonna leverage the property owner who has a common affiliated ownership to do something that he obviously doesn't wanna do, just let us know that. We're not gonna participate in it. We just can't. It just doesn't make any sense. And we can debate the legality of it. Is that an appropriate thing for this board or any board to be doing? And we can talk about it.
We're just looking for ways to help mitigate the traffic impact.
We know, but you know, I don't know if it's ever been studied if that is going to be a mitigation. I know people believe things. I get it. I know, Brian, you firmly believe in your soul that making that connection is going to improve things. I don't know if that's true or not. And you know, that's why people look at this, because all of a sudden now people start cutting through the shopping center when they were never going to go into the shopping center, and they were never going to go into the gas station. Now you're going to start a traffic route. people cut through neighborhoods and people try to stop the cut throughs of neighborhoods. So these issues are very, very complicated.
So if I may just real quick,
Yeah.
just to clear up a few things, because this board, has done I think a really good job of staying professional and looking at facts. And the town has taken, a long look at this corridor. We actually did a Route 140 corridor study, which highlights all the improvements that are recommended on this corridor, and this is one of those. It's unfortunate that we have a property owner unwilling to cooperate, and that's no fault of your own. It's just, that's what it is. But to this board, I mean, they use facts and studies and have done a lot of in-depth look at this corridor.
Okay.
So
fair
to
enough.
that, Jim, I guess that would have been through traffic analysis. through
Yeah,
nature
again,
reserve.
so that's through the planning board. The planning
Okay.
board looked at one warehouse that came forward, sought mitigation, said, down the road, there's gonna be more development. Let's look at the corridor as a whole, and look at it, and try and find some, again, creative ways to improve traffic. And so that's where the planning board really shines and then steps in for these types of developments. That, once it gets there, in Bellingham, it's pretty much traffic. That's the number one issue that we're looking at here. So certainly if this were to move forward, the planning board will be looking at this exhaustively.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind,
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
the cut through kind of exists already. I'll just be honest with you. Any given morning when rapid refill is a zoo, you can count 4, 5, 6 cars that just drive over the grass. So we have people, not trucks, believe it or not, but I've seen many cars just drive right over that grass just to get out of that rapid refill plaza. So it's already ongoing, shall we say.
Some folks from the public who may want to speak on that.
Okay, yeah, I guess I'll open up to the public, just
Mr. Chairman, may I speak again?
just briefly. Yeah, go ahead.
Just briefly, I just want to bring you up to date on a couple other things. This is the best project that I've had proposed to me so far. I've had 2 new car dealerships that wanted to buy my property and could do it as it's presently zoned. I've had people want to put another gas station on the corner where the commercial property is. I don't want another gas station there. We have the one across the street, that's fine. I've had fast food restaurants be interested in that. They could go there. I have 7 curb cuts given to me by the state. They're existing, they're there now, the state put them in. And like the variance you're saying that we need for the driveway for the trucks, because it's within 200 feet of the next one at the warehouse, guess what? My driveway's been there since 1946. If there's a driveway in violation 200 feet, it's the one next door that the board approved, not mine. But, and my industrial property goes straight in and makes a hockey stick turn right out to Maple Street to my rear gate. I have another entrance down there. So even if that little bit up front was developed commercially, I can still put in an industrial subdivision by right, keep those curb cuts and use them. I could have a bunch of metal buildings in there like Williams Way and have them come out onto Maple Street. To me, this is the best project for me and the town. But it's up to you. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a lot of other things that can go in there. It's gonna be developed.
Yeah, no, and no, I think they're fair points, because I think that it definitely, the applicant seems like they've been working with the town and the board, and I don't think anyone feels, I think everyone feels it's a good project. I
Oh, the
think it's
building
just.
looks nice. If they showed me. the building,
Yeah.
I didn't like the first one. Second one, welcome to Bellingham. It looks good. It's a nice thing. And it's a lot better than having a bunch of cars, retail, restaurant, fast food, and those driveways are there.
Okay, I'll open it up to the public. Just state your name and address. Yeah, go ahead.
George Levine, I own 191 Mechanic Street, affectionately known as the PJ Plaza. And I've chatted with Eddie on many occasions about the cut through. And I understand, I think it's a great project that they're advocating in the mitigation money as the council put forward. I think it's a great thing. But there's no question in my mind, and some of my tenants here tonight that have the opinion that traffic will be mitigated on Route 140 if there is some sort of cut through. And Eddie brought up the subject of insurance, so he and I both have insurance on our property, so that's not the issue. But what I did bring up, one issue that I brought up to Jimmy, Mr. Cooper, excuse me, is if we could do a cut through only one way, In other words, from the gas station into my property, so there wouldn't be
Oh, nice.
just one way. So we won't,
Got it.
the issue of two cars crashing in the middle would be eliminated. And in the morning, people park in my lot, specifically Eversource and the telephone trucks. There's 10 or 11 early in the morning, because they can't fit into rapid refill, and then they walk across the property. So I'm happy to give up a space or two. I've talked to Mr. Kufer about this, to have sort of a cut through. I think it would help the traffic issues on Route 140, which is what everybody's concerned about.
If it's a one-way going towards your place, how does that help the people coming down 140?
It
Right, you
prevents
had
the
one?
people from, in the gas station, getting out on 140, coming around the turn and trying to get into my place. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
Okay,
We have some more guests that would like to say something.
thank you. Yeah,
Hi, Ernie Pelletier, I live on Standish Road in Pilgrim Village. I also own a business across the street from this proposed development, which I'm in favor of, by the way. I think it's a good use for the property. Traffic obviously is the biggest issue. I go through that intersection several times a day, going back home to work, I haven't really observed cars cutting across the grass. I've been in that property. In 12 years, I had the bookstore there before, now I have the liquor store. I've never observed that. I will tell you though, I have observed a lot of people walking across. That happens quite frequently, but not in the winter, because once those parking lots get plowed, there's huge hills of snow. Some people do brave the Alps more or less to come across, but for the most part, they're entering those two plazas, getting back on 140, just to come right back in again. And that's a significant issue. As someone who drives through that area every day, I'd like to see the traffic mitigated. I think we all would. First, I'll ask you, don't give up the ghost on that right turn lane. I think that is critically important that that be extended. I see that blocked often during the high traffic times. And it's not because of the trucks in the left lane, it's the middle lane that seems to be blocking, at least in my experience. So I wouldn't just give up that particular issue. But the cut through, I think, would be a benefit to everybody, all the property owners, the people that use the plazas, and people that are driving by that have no intention of going in there. I think everyone will benefit from that. And I don't think the potential of accidents is quite as strong as the cars coming out. And more often what I see are cars coming out of Rapid and taking that left turn onto 140 that they're not supposed to do during the high traffic time. And I see that happening all the time. I think that's by far the most dangerous aspect of that area. So, I mean, I think the project's a good one if everybody can figure out the traffic.
okay, thanks.
Hello, Julie Rogers, 10 Penny Lane. So I knew something was going in over there, but I obviously live under a rock because I didn't know that this whole project was going on. So I'm only here to talk about the cut through. And I'm gonna disagree with George because I think it should be able to go both ways.
Well, I think it would be great to go both ways, but my dear friend Eddie. I
So
know
here's why
that's
I
good.
think this though. So especially in the winter time, when the snow is built up at the end of our entrance there, our entrance and our exit, you cannot, it's like playing chicken to get out onto 140. You cannot see anything. You can only take a left-hand turn onto that road at nighttime when you can see headlights coming up.
Because the hill, yeah, it goes down.
Because of that hill.
Yeah.
That entrance and exit is so close to that hill that in the winter time, during the day, it's scary. So just so you know, while during the peak time of the days, myself and most of my staff and a lot of my guests come to that exit and we all take a right instead of going left. We all pull into Rapid Refill, we drive around the back of that, we come onto Maple Street and we take the left-hand turn. That is the safest way to get out of that parking lot. I don't know why that, where that entrance is, but not an exit, is not an exit also, or maybe a stop, a light, like a stoplight. That might slow everything down at the front over there too. So that will alleviate all of us coming out taking rights to make a left-hand turn, which is crazy, but we do it. Most of my staff does it, a lot of my guests. So I think that maybe putting a light there might slow everything down here for here and getting this traffic going in the direction that it might need to go in. Or if you're gonna put a cut through, maybe go behind the trucks fuels just onto Maple Street. And then if anybody wants to come back in, they can. It doesn't have to be in the middle of the parking lot, because worried about everybody hitting each other and traffic going all over the place. It might just be a simple road right behind where they put fuel trucks up.
Well, Jim, isn't that going to get a light down the road because of the other,
Because the residents.
because the Mill Street's coming through? Is that right?
Oh, no, no,
That's
not quite to that area. You're talking about the apartments. That's a little bit.
Oh,
beyond.
it's the apartment, that's right, okay. All right. Is there anyone else in the public who wants to speak on this?
At least we have one more speaker.
Just name and address.
Hi, Kim Morgan, actually, local of Marlboro, but Bellingham is 191 Mechanic Street for me. It's been a big request from most of my customers is how come if I want to get from here to the gas station, I have to walk over or go around the long way. And again, the visibility issue with the drifts in the winter, that's what I see causing the most near miss accidents, or, you know, everyone pretty much disregards the sign that says you can only take a left during these hours. It's, do I feel like taking a left? Just go. But yeah, I think it would help with mitigating some of the traffic in that area, because there's a lot of go the long way to get to the short route that everyone seems to want to be getting to. And you know, the main issue with Rapid right now seems to be that you know when it's the shift change over at Amazon, because the whole fleet is there at the same time, like so, you know, as long as the cut through can find a way to get around all these other parking vehicles for places to go, yeah, I think it's gonna benefit.
All right, thanks. So I guess just to bring it back, so Jim, we're tasked with really two variances, right? If we go back to the original.
Oh, so technically you got three here in front of you, and I think we've, talked to each of them at great length here. You got the use, bringing it into the B1 zone. You have the height of the building. Again, the applicants talked about how they're going to be lowering the building and raising up the entry area and providing the signage, and obviously that will get further vetted. And then again, as the property owners mentioned, the location of the driveway entrance and how it doesn't technically meet the bylaws, but yet there are several curb cuts in that general area. So yeah, you're testing those three. They really need all three as proposed. And so, that's certainly for you guys to discuss condition if you were to move forward with any favorable decision. And, again, obviously we would take all this feedback to the planning board as next steps.
And the use really is just because their original proposal for the was all within right, but it's because of that flipping of the parking.
Right, and again, I'll remind you,
And is that the same with
because,
the curb cut too for the?
well, no, so the curb cut essentially and John may want to touch on this, but it's essentially you're slightly moving the entry to where the existing curb cuts are today.
Yeah, there's, I want to say 4 curb cuts on that side of the road existing today. We're consolidating all of those curb cuts into one curb cut, and we're putting it, as far away from the intersection as possible, which is what you want to do.
Yeah.
You don't want the driveway closer. It's adequately spaced from an operational standpoint from the driveway next to us. It just so happens though that your bylaw reads that in industrial zones, properties on the same side of the street should have a driveway separation of 250 feet.
You'll have the 125, is that what it's going to be? Is it still gonna
It's
be-
about 130, is what it is. And from a traffic standpoint, it works just fine. It just doesn't click the box from the way the zoning ordinance is written.
Mr. Chairman, also, and I know this variance is not in front of us, but isn't there a distance issue with the Maple Street driveway?
I think it had to do with that, with the zoning of that property, because I think it was just an industrial zone. I think we looked at it earlier with staff. That side didn't need it. But I think regardless, it's the same, theory. We located the driveways as far from the intersection as possible, which is good engineering practice. It's what you want to do. And they're also separated enough where the traffic works between the two driveways.
Okay, so just for our reference as a board, how many feet are you from the asphalt plant driveway?
That one was probably closer to about 100 and a little over 100 feet. The other one was about 130.
And Jim, based on what the zoning is right there in Maple Street, is that adequate or does that need a variance as well?
Well, so for industrial to industrial, it's the 250. I don't think it speaks to industrial to business.
Correct.
Okay.
Industrial to industrial down.
No,
The
just
the asphalt plant's industrial. My property right there to the gate is also industrial.
No, that's business there.
No, it isn't. There's a plan right here.
No, my concern is solely the safety of the two driveways being so close. Because I mean, you've spoken to your truck traffic, and during the season, that asphalt plant is extremely busy, and those trucks tend to sit pretty much right where you're gonna put your entrance.
And you can certainly, if you want, condition any decision on, turning movement analysis during the full-blown traffic study, if the board wanted to.
I just don't want to create an issue later on, you know what I'm saying?
I've got 3 openings on Maple Street, 3 curb cuts. One at the garage, the big wide one that was just done. You put in the water line, state did all of that. And then I have the lower one right beside the asphalt plant.
Yeah.
Same as theirs, right at the lot line.
As long as we don't think we're gonna have an issue with more trucks being right there, that's all. That's my concern. It's not oh my God, you can't do it because of this. We have trucks coming up right there. Are we far enough away? That's my concern.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
So the 3 things that Jim mentioned, one would be the driveway 130 feet from the other driveway. Second thing would be the height variance from 35 to 45 feet. Am I correct with that?
Is that the right numbers, Jim? Is it the 35 to 40 feet? That's
Yeah,
correct.
and then the third thing would be having that plant, the building on the commercial side as well as the industrial side.
That's correct.
Does that cover everything?
That's correct.
I think a motion to close the hearing. Sure. Motion to close.
Second. Mr. Chairman, before you close the hearing, lost my train of thought.
Was it regarding, you were saying about your other property in the back being industrial and not being?
It does, it wraps right around the business zone. But this project here will eliminate that spot zoning of the business zone on the corner by letting the warehouse overlap and get one use. I have 10 acres here. We're using up the whole 10 acres with a nice good looking building compared to what other things could go.
Thank you. I guess we'll go back to it. So
Motion to grant the variances as laid out, along with providing additional traffic study through the planning board.
Can we have discussion on that first?
So we're gonna add any conditions with that?
yeah, do we want to draft up a formal
Or would you like me to draft a favorable decision for your consideration? Very
Yeah,
good.
that might be
Yes,
good
I
for
can
review.
review it. And so with the condition of a traffic study, I've heard turning movement analysis, perhaps at time of planning board review. Recommendation of a timing analysis of the lights, 250,000 to be used to mitigate concerns at Maple and 140 intersection to be further studied by the planning board. That's I have at this time.
And the height and the
Yeah, no less than 130 feet away and the heights mitigation. or height variance.
Now, is there a way to, because I know that the applicant doesn't want to do the connection at PJ's, but is there a way to just make note of it? I mean,
You
maybe
can
it's
certainly
not.
make a finding that you would wish the planning board to
Yeah.
have further discussion on.
Okay, I just don't know if we want to note it, because it doesn't look like it's going to be a condition.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yeah.
And this is directed to the applicant, and it's kind of a request, if possible. You're putting up a beautiful sign there, welcome to Bellingham, and I greatly appreciate it. I love the landscaping you're gonna do. Just a food for thought, because everything that's going on right now in the world. Is there any way of adding in with that sign, we are a Purple Hat community? I know it's kind of a strange request, but it's kind of important, at least in my view.
I would have to ask the applicant, I'm just the property owner.
Yeah, no, I'd like to throw that out there while you're considering working on the sign, if you could take that in consideration.
I mean, this is Wayne Finnegan with Island Development. Yeah, of course, if the town wants some special signage as associated with the welcome to Bellingham sign.
I guess you could say, just like Peter said, just under consideration. you know?
Under consideration, if you wouldn't mind.
It's not for us to deny what the town wants.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so then I guess, do we just continue to the next meeting to review the favorable?
So make a motion to recommend approval, favorable decision as specified for review at your next meeting.
Okay.
Very good. You can add that to my motion, yes. Call the question. On the motion.
Somebody's got a second motion.
I'll second the motion. I thought you would already second it.
Yeah. I'll
Okay.
second.
Discussion?
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Hey, guys. Happy birthday, Ed.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. It's 151 Maple Street. So do I open?
So I'll quickly read the public hearing notice. The Bellingham zoning board of appeals will hold a public hearing on September 2nd, 2021 at 7 p.m. in the Arcane Meeting Room, 10 Mechanic Street, for the request for special permit, section 240-38, that will pre-existing non-conforming use, as well as a variance to the intensity of use schedule, section 240-40, to allow for a structure with insufficient front yard setback at the property of 151 Maple Street, Bellingham, Mass, map 26, lot 2AA. The property is zoned suburban. The applicant and owner is the Realty Trust, 151 Maple Street, Bellingham, Mass. The application is reviewed at the town clerk's office, 10 Mechanic Street, during regular town business hours, or online at bellinghamma.org on the zoning board page. Anyone wishing to be heard shall attend at the time and place. Motion open.
All right. Motion. All those in favor? Sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right, so so the hearing is opened. I see the applicant online. One note I do want to make before we give it to the applicant is you do have in your package the variance withdrawal request. So I believe there's been some alterations to the plan, so they no longer need that variance. If the applicant wants to agree that that is the case, the board just wants to accept that variance withdrawal first, and then move on to the discussion of the pre-existing non-conforming.
Yes, Michael Hassett, engineer with Gary and Howland, speaking on behalf of the applicant. That is correct. We are withdrawing the request for the variance. We are only here for you tonight now, seeking the special permit.
Okay.
I'd like to start a motion to accept the withdrawal of the variance request.
Second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Do you want to walk us through what you're proposing?
Absolutely. Can I share my screen, please?
Yeah, 1 second. Okay, go ahead.
Let's see this. All right, can you see the screen okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. As I said, my name is Michael Hassett. I'm here representing the applicant from Gary and Hellman. So the applicant is proposing to construct a 5,000 square foot garage for his existing landscaping use on the property at 151 Maple Street. So this is the former site of the Mog Lochner's restaurant. It has operated as a landscaping use since December of 2009. And so we're requesting a special permit from Chapter 240 zoning section 30A, which is the change, extension, or alteration to a pre-existing non-conforming use. And so, you know, we're proposing this proposed garage here on the site. It's roughly in the same location as the old restaurant. You can actually see this line through here somewhat delineates the approximate
Could you get a
location.
little closer to the speaker? I'm having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, it sounds like you're coming in and out a little bit.
Okay, how's this? Is this any better?
Yes, better.
Okay. So sorry, I'll go back. So this area here delineates the approximate location of the former Mog Lochner's restaurant. And it is our intent to construct this 5,000 square foot garage for the existing non-conforming landscaping use. I'll kind of go back to it. I'm not sure where I cut out, so I'll go through everything again real quickly. But we're requesting a special permit under Chapter 240 zoning section 30A, which is the change, extension, or alteration to a pre-existing non-conforming use. So the applicant is looking to continue to use this site as a landscaping company's yard for its use. And there's some existing structures on here. There's a couple garages scattered across the property. This one right here has some office space in it, and then there is a existing office trailer located here. The office trailer will be removed as part of the proposed work, and the existing 3 garages will stay.
Oh, you're coming in and out a little bit again.
I'm sorry. See if I can turn this up a little bit. Give me 1 second here. I need to open up my meeting controls.
Turned it off.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So where did I lose you guys?
Just the last sentence.
Oh, okay. So the existing office trailer here is going to be removed, and then the existing 3 garages will be staying on the property. And we'd be proposing to add more delineated spaces. So there'll be spaces here, some spaces here, and then some additional spaces along through here, and some out in front of the building. So the required spaces for the site, total parking required is 23 parking spaces. And under the proposed alterations to the site, we're providing 33. We're meeting the front yard setbacks. That was the variance that we were looking for. We had it at 20 feet, but we are now complying with the zoning setbacks. And so that's really the project. I'll turn it over to you guys if you have any questions about the proposal.
Can you talk a little bit about what's the construction or what's the garage going to look like? I can see that it looks like it's a 4-bay and then it's accessed from the side opposite of the street.
Yeah, so there it would be, it's actually 5-bay. There's a bay here, 2 in the front.
Oh, okay.
And then 2 over here. And then I believe Mel, the applicant, is actually here today. He can speak a little bit, but I believe it's going to be like a metal garage building. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's proposed to be, you know, like a regular metal garage.
Okay. And what about, it looks like you're showing, is that going to be a new, I guess, are you doing anything visually from the street side?
So I believe through his time on the property, he's installed, is it a 6-foot vinyl fence along the front? Is that what
Yes.
currently is there?
Yep, 6-foot vinyl fence in the front.
Yeah, so there's an existing 6-foot vinyl fence that runs along the property. That would be obviously altered a little bit to allow for the new entrance locations, the widening of the throat here. And then for screening, there's actually some in his existing arborvitae row along the property line that I believe was part of the ANP energy power plant that's behind the property back here. So there's an existing detention pond here, and then their driveway runs along the back here. And so there's some screening along the front there. This property here is all wooded. And then I think there's a single family residence across the street, and that would be screened with the existing 6-foot vinyl fence.
And there's nothing there right now where the proposed building's going, right?
No, just a general kind of gravel parking area that is being used in conjunction with the existing buildings on the site.
Okay, and then Jim, we're really just looking at, because the variance is out obviously, but the special permit is the intensity of use that this isn't potentially intensifying. the
Yeah,
use on
so
the
a
property.
little context, so the zoning was just changed a few years back from industrial to suburban. This use was already in existence at that time. So yes, the board is looking at simply whether or not to grant an extension of the use. So they're adding some intensity to that property. I will say also, for context purposes, this is another one where it will go to the planning board for a minor site plan. So it doesn't raise to the level of a full development plan, but it would be administrative review for the building itself to give a little extra review and consideration. But certainly, so for your review this evening, looking at it, saying that it's an extending the use, will it be, out of kind and character of the neighborhood? And if there's any way to, mitigate some of that extension of use.
And what's the height gonna be? Did you already speak of that for the garage?
I did not. I believe it's going to be single story in for the most part, maybe story and a half. I don't believe there's plans for a second floor. So it would just be a large enough space to allow for his vehicles to be pulled inside for maintenance and service.
And what, I guess, could you just speak to the type of vehicles that are gonna be stored there?
I believe just general landscaping vehicles, but I think maybe Mel can speak more accurately to that.
Yeah, so basically used for the landscape, have the trucks. And so the garage is gonna be for the main, do all the maintenance and equipment and have, better offs.
But not any large, I guess just like landscape trucks, maybe like backhoes or.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, it's just like a regular equipment for landscaping, we got, backhoes, trucks, not like a big trucks.
And where are you bringing more vehicles on the site? Are they currently? You have, because you have some of the garages, are there some that are just out to the weather and you're making this so they have a closed structure to be in?
Yeah, so the build's gonna be so it can keep some equipment inside too.
All right.
Okay, I think those are all my questions. If anyone else.
I do, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
Sure.
First of all, another steel structure building is not appealing to me. And I know it's got to go through planning board, and I just asked the planning board to look at that closely. But one of my concerns, to be very honest with you, is you drive down the street right now and the existing use looks like a junkyard. There's trailers everywhere, there's campers, there's motorhomes, there's a trailer there with a torn roof on it. And I suppose I need to put this to to Jim and to Tim. How many unregistered vehicles are currently on that lot? Because it really looks like a junkyard right now.
So unregistered vehicle, now all those vehicles being registered.
So that one trail, landscape trail with a torn roof that's been there for a year and a half, that's registered and being used?
Oh, no, so those, no, sorry, those
Yeah.
are the closed trade, was just used for storage, but those can be moved, those, I can.
So again, I need to ask our building inspector, on
Mhm.
such a lot in the current zoning, how many unregistered vehicles are allowed there?
They're allowed one unregistered vehicle on that property unless other vehicles are stored inside or be, out of sight. Okay, I'm not really familiar with how many unregistered vehicles they have. I don't really go on the site that often. I don't really have much complaints about them, but I do have a couple of questions. But to answer your question, I'm not sure how many, Peter, are
Okay,
there.
because and
But they're
again,
allowed one.
right now, your property as it exists, I'm not jumping up and down to let you expand it, because right now, it's actually an eyesore on Maple Street. And I'm sorry to say that to you, I know it's your business and, but right now it doesn't look good. So that's my concern.
So I think, this would be an opportunity to improve upon that, because we'd be putting up a brand new building with brand new paving, which will necessitate a cleanup of the site, and make it a more attractive site from the street. And I can't speak for Mel, but I think he might be willing to work with the zoning board and then later on the planning board to address any concerns you might have.
Oh, yeah, definitely will, yeah.
What,
Yeah, go ahead.
one of the things that I was, I do see this as an opportunity perhaps to hide a little bit more of the operations of the business. And one of the things that I've observed driving by is that there is a very nice white fence that's out front, and there are screening that's around the property, which is also very nice. But as you drive by, the gates that are open or not, they don't have slats or whatever. So that, well, I think what Peter's referring to is you can look right into the belly of the beast and you can see what's behind the curtain. And it is, if there's an opportunity there to hide that with gates that are closed, they're not being used, and there's additional screening around the property. And Jim, is there an opportunity for some sort of preserving natural screening in the back or on the side or something like that?
Potentially in the back, I don't know, the property line, I think there's a wetland line, a hard wetland line there that's already kind of preserving the back. But you could certainly, discuss with the applicant, potentially providing maybe a one sheet planting plan or, something to beautify. It sounds like the board wants something to more beautify the landscape along Maple Street. So perhaps there's an opportunity there for a planting plan at the next meeting or something.
Yeah, I would like to see if, and I don't want to cause the applicant to spend it needless money, so it doesn't have to be overly elaborate, but if there's ways that you can brainstorm ways to block the view of the internal operations of the business and that the gates remain closed as you enter and exit the property, that would, I think, go a long way to help Peter's concerns. And it would be, in a perfect world, nice to understand what this structure is going to look like as well. I don't know if we need an elevation, but some sense of what it's going to look like.
Well, maybe some materials, what the construction will be.
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
You finish. I didn't want to cut you off. So I understand that it's going to be a metal building, and if in that case, I would not like to see, and that being the side that's not going to have any doors or anything, just a big metal wall would not look very appealing facing the street. So there needs to be some change to make that look more appealing, as Brian was mentioning.
For the build, they say metal build, but with a landscaping and masonry, I'm willing to do nice brick towards the street too. I can do like a brick too.
So to Brian's suggestion, maybe you could bring something next month to show us how that might look.
Okay, yeah, because we didn't draw anything to build yet. We have, we just started the process, but so now
Yes.
jump and have, drawing for the building. So.
Aesthetics, how it will look would be great.
Yeah.
Mr.
On the
Chairman,
planting
if I may?
board. Yeah.
Just a general question. I was just wondering, is there any office space going in this? I see you're getting rid of the office trailer. Is it just gonna be strictly a garage for storing vehicles? and-
Yes, about 20% of the building will be office space. So it's a 5,000 square foot building. We're earmarking 1,000 square feet of office space. I believe that's a conservative estimate, and that was for the parking calculations to make sure that we were exceeding what was required. And with that 1,000 square feet of office space, we're still in excess of 10 additional spaces. And should we need more, there's plenty of room on the site to provide that.
Yeah, the way it looks right now, with the 6 garage doors, it doesn't look like there's any room for office space in the way it's configured.
Well, no, the garage doors are here, and up here. So there's plenty of space for office, in this front part of the building.
Aren't those all garage doors?
No, these are lights. The garage doors, sorry, are these bolder lines. So that's one here where it says 12-foot overhead door. Those are the.
Oh, those are lights. I get it.
The same thing. Yeah, it's that.
Do you have any conceptual drawings on this? Like, what your thoughts are, or is it still like in the planning process?
This was the first step. We wanted to feel out how the ZBA felt about the potential expansion of the use. And so we didn't want to, jump the shark here and kind of, start doing architectural renderings and all of that before we needed to. But if something like that is what the board needs to feel comfortable with allowing the expansion of the use, I think we're happy to provide that.
I mean, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming and presenting this. I am in agreement with the members of the board. I'd like to see how it's going to look like, and I think it's going to beautify the area, if anything, and it's going to improve the area. So we're hoping to see, a nice plan where at least we can know what material is going to be used and how it's going to look like from the street. We'd appreciate, your best effort to present that to us, and I feel like we're inching towards in favor of this project, and we appreciate all your effort here.
Understood. And just to say that is one of the intents of this project is to, provide some structure and improve the appearance and function of the site. That is kind of why we're doing it. And so, we appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Mr. Chairman, if you may.
Sure.
Yeah, I can appreciate you wanting to do this, and I'm still gonna hop on the same thing that if we allow this to go on and expand, are we going to expand the mess that's currently there? That's my major concern with this project. It's just a screw of trucks, trailers, there's campers and RVs there.
Well, I guess that's why I wondered that. Is it more, I guess they're doing it to house some of those vehicles in a way. And then I guess.
But you don't store RVs inside there. I mean, we're storing RVs and campers, and if I didn't know the sign was landscaping, I wouldn't know what this site was. And I would encourage my fellow board members to take a drive down the next day or so and take a look at what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so the RV is my RV. It's not my storage, it's somebody else's RV, is an RV. Me and my brother.
And again, I would encourage my fellow board members to just take a drive down and take a look at the current conditions down there. I think you'll be amused.
Okay.
So do we want to continue this to next month?
Yeah.
With the renditions that they'll show?
Should I open it to the public?
Could I make a comment?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I think this is an opportunity for us to clean this site up and put some conditions on it that I can enforce. And if it seems like he wants to make it look professional and come up with a landscaping plan, I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea for the site.
I agree, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Tim, can you probably make some suggestions? Oh, not to Jim.
Tim or Jim?
Take something somewhere or show up so that we can have that for our next meeting.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
I guess I'll open it to the public. Is there anyone that wants to speak on this? Okay, then Art,
Motion to
October 7th.
continue till October 7th.
Second.
all right, discussion? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we'll see you in a month.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time.
All right, on to the next one.
I'll read the public hearing notice. Bellingham zoning board of appeals will hold a public hearing on September 2nd at 7 p.m. in our meeting room, 10 Mechanic for a variance to the intensity of use schedule section 240-40 to allow for an office use within a residential zone that would otherwise not be allowed. The property is 700 Pulaski Boulevard, Bellingham, Mass. Assessment map 87 lot 23A. The property is zoned residential. The applicant is Chris Lanu, 295 Lincoln Street, Blackstone, Mass. And the owner is Frank Howell, 700 Pulaski Boulevard, Bellingham, Mass. The application may be viewed at town clerk's office, 10 Mechanic Street during regular town business hours or online at bellinghamma.org. On the zoning board page, anyone wishing to be heard shall attend at the time and place of
Motion to open.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
All right, and in your package tonight, you have the application and brief narrative by the applicant, as well as some Google imagery of the existing conditions and plot plan of the existing condition. I believe the applicant's here this evening if you want to public.
Okay, and I just want to disclose that Chris actually helped hook up sewer at my house and did a great job. So I don't think it's a conflict, but I think he just has a great business and did a great job for me, but just put it out there.
Thank you. I'm Chris Lanu. I own ADC Septic out of Blackstone. We do a lot of work in Bellingham. I've been looking for an office front. This building has been sitting on there for a while, not being used. I know the current owner of the building. I have a handshake agreement with this, so I spent some money to try to get the permit so I can run a business out of there. So the thing with this is, this building was an auto body shop years ago. My friend moved it out of there, went to Blackstone, so now it's sitting there as car storage. So what I'm proposing to do is it's basically gonna be a garage for parking. So there's right now is a 3-bay garage. We're gonna remove one of the bay doors. We're gonna make that into an office. In the back of that bay already, there's a current office. But we're gonna have 2 offices in there, so I can have myself and a secretary. So 1 bay door will be completely removed, be a glass front, make it look really nice. The other 2 bay doors are gonna get replaced with some new doors, wood green, something really nice. The outdoor of the building is gonna be changed to the color. It's gonna be like a navy blue, something like the blinds in here. The perimeter of the property now has a dilapidated wood fence. The wood fence is gonna get taken down. It's gonna be a white vinyl 6-foot fence around the property, actually mimicking exactly what's there right now and what's on the plan. The other thing we have hours of operation. So my secretary gets in or myself, we're gonna open up. I think I put down 8 o'clock as we show up. Basically, this is just an office for customers to come and pay a bill if they have questions. And then we're gonna park 2 vehicles there. So I'll have 2 employees. One will be a portable toilet truck, the other one will be a septic pump truck. There'll be no work on the property. There'll be no storage in the property. It's just gonna be to park those 2 vehicles inside the building. And we'll have the other bay, it's gonna be turned into an office front. We're gonna do some nice lighting on the outside, seal coat that. There'll be a nice awning on the building. There'll be cameras around the whole building. That's what we're looking at doing over there. I currently run the business. I have a piece of industrial land in town. It's actually on my own property. All the heavy excavation that we do, because we do everything from portable toilets, excavation, installations, to septic inspections. The front of it is gonna be off my industrial property, so this is just an office front. Right now, I have hundreds of people showing up at my house, and I have an office I meet in my garage on my property. And people are coming to my house and everything, and now we're looking to move it to the next level and have an office front. This building has tons of front traffic going up and down Pulaski Boulevard. We service Bellingham, Franklin, all the area towns. So this would be a really great location for that. There won't be anything else going on the properties to not get any of the residents in the area, aggravated or anything. When we're going for the end of the day, there's nothing else going on there. So there's no hammer banging, no air tools going on, anything like that. The only thing we were gonna do is we were gonna put an air compressor on the outside, an air line on the outside, and offer free air to anybody going by for their car tires and stuff like that. So we're just a little bit of give back. And occasionally, also, let me back once more, I also have a nonprofit organization called the ADC Initiative. And I work with Dana Farber, and we do help for local cancer patients. So that office will be out of there as well too. It's kind of a twofold office. So we do fundraisers and stuff like that. We sell tickets when we have fundraisers, and that will be the front, if we do have a fundraiser, people come and buy tickets and whatever else they need to do. But that's all we're looking to do over there. If there's any other suggestions the board has, I'm really willing to do whatever to make it work.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. So you said the 2 vehicles in the 2 bays, and then do you know how many parking spaces outside you might have for just customers?
Actually, no, I don't, because the most we get is maybe 1 or 2 people stopping in at a time. So I'm gonna have 3 vehicles parked there for employees, a secretary and 2 drivers. Their vehicles, if you're looking at the front of the property to the far left, there's a huge area right there. The 3 vehicles will be there, and I'll probably have 3 other additional parking spots for people coming in. If they need to come into the office, they can park over there and just walk into the office. So it's not gonna affect any traffic. We're not a, high-based warehouse where we're getting tons of vehicles coming in. This is gonna be just, oh, I'll run down, pay my bill, or I'm going in to get some information, or I gotta pick up some paperwork.
And the 2 vehicles that you said, one is a pumper truck.
Yeah, one's gonna be a 3,600 gallon pump truck. The only thing I have to do, the height of the building will not change. That bay door I need to make taller. The ceiling height inside is sufficient. The way that building is framed right now is the front socket comes down. That needs to be cut up a little bit, and the door needs to get raised. The change of the building, the height wise, will remain exactly what it is.
Okay. And then what's the other vehicle?
It's I run on the vehicles. The other one's gonna be a 2021 Mitsubishi little small cab over, and it's got a flatbed on the back with a small little 300 gallon septic and 150 gallon fresh water, and that services portable toilets.
Okay, and then do you have any other equipment that might be, no other industrial like you're saying would be at the other?
No, everything else runs out of my other property where I have a larger building, and I have a gravel yard. All my stuff is there, my excavators are. This place is not suited for any of that. I might have a UPS truck drop off clerical supplies, stuff like that, but there's gonna be no heavy equipment there or nothing like that. This is not what I want it for. It's an office front with 2 vehicles, and that my staff can go there and get the 2 vehicles and have enough for people to come in.
And what do you think for hours of operation? Is it Monday through Friday?
Yeah, Monday through Friday, maybe an occasional Saturday for a couple hours. The other thing I'm looking to do on this site also, I'm really big on education for septic systems for clients. So this place here in that office, I might have a Saturday morning, come in, anybody have questions, we're gonna do a seminar or something. So I work with other local board of health, also Bellingham, Blackstone, and a few others. So I'm always trying to look to hold a little seminar, do a slideshow, whatever, and something like that might happen on a Saturday. But nothing, that's about it.
Okay, and then the only other question I had was for Jim. Because driving by, I think we talked about this, but so we're in front of us is just for intensity of use. Has it been abandoned on the current property?
I brought that up. So yeah, again, some more context here. So this is underlying zoning is residential. For many years, it was a business use. There was a couple of different car type uses, repair, spray, etc. There was a used car license on that location. I know that was not renewed many years ago. So that use was no longer allowed because, as you guys know, we have a cap on the number of used car licenses allowed in town. and we currently are at that cap. And so at least 5 or 6 years, it has been abandoned, no use there on site. And so you're right, you can't use the abandonment clause for anything that's not residential over 2 years. And so this has exceeded that. And that's why he's there before you this evening, is he's proposing the office use. The underlying zoning is residential, so therefore it's a use variance that you're looking at.
Okay. I think those are all my questions, yeah, Brian?
For the two vehicles that were gonna be parked in the garage, the pump truck and some other truck, is there a storage of waste, or is there any, my concern is the storage of that, but secondly, is there any odor that goes with that, or?
Now, the only time there's any odor is when we're actually operating the truck and the pump and doing a clean out of the system. It's the only time you're gonna get an odor. The trucks are, if anybody's seen my trucks before, everything's up to date, really maintained. There are no leaks. Some of the Board of Health actually inspect our trucks annually to make sure there are no leaks. So there's no odors from the vehicles at all. And we're not gonna be operating the pump on site anyways, because we only operate the pump is when we're actually doing a service call. So yeah, the trucks will have liquid in them, but there's no odor.
And they will be inside at all times. They won't be parked outside the area.
Unless I decide to wash them, in the parking lot right there.
Other
But
than that.
we're looking at keeping these trucks inside the building. But I just need to get, I would pull a building permit so I can swap out the doors and raise that ceiling height. So I can get the 3,600 gallon truck inside. The other one will fit all right.
How about pump out? Do you do that at a different facility, cleaning?
Oh, all the liquid waste always goes to, we use town of Milford and we use the town of Oxbridge. So we go to certified sites where we dump all our refuse. So, and that's actually, when we pull our permit for the town of Bellingham, we have to get what's called an all-fault permit. So that gets documented where we get rid of all of our waste.
Mr. Chairman, one question.
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
I don't have major issues here, but I do have a question. If you have another facility currently with your construction equipment, why bring these trucks here and not leave them there? Is it just to be able to keep them indoors, keep them nice and clean, or?
No, the reason for this is I actually have multiple pump trucks and I have multiple portable toilet trucks. So what I want to do is to alleviate, I have multiple excavators. The building I have on my current property in the winter time, we need to keep all this stuff inside. So I'm running out of space on my current place. So in order for me to keep everything inside, I need to add on to my current location, but it also doesn't help me with the office. Because me having the office at my residence, I have, it's my backyard, it's my home, and I'm getting people showing up all times of the night. Because we're a 365-day, 24/7 business. So this location won't be dealing with this because I handle all of my staff work during the day. I handle all the emergency calls on weekends and evenings, which that truck, I have a brand new 2019 pump truck that remains on my personal property. That's my emergency call out vehicle, and I'm the one that handles those calls. So nobody's gonna be showing up to this building at 2 a.m. and taking out a pump truck and waking up neighbors. That's not why I'm doing this.
No, I didn't even think that far ahead of cold weather. I suppose you really don't want that stuff freezing, do you?
No, believe it or not, it does freeze. And,
I can believe that.
No kidding.
no, so yeah, and plus like we run the business 24/7. So come the middle of winter, when there's an emergency, I need to get the trucks ready to go. And if I have a frozen valve or frozen something, it's not fun. So by having them inside, it gives me more room at my current location. And now I'm actually gonna have a legit office front. Like I said, we serve the town of Bellingham. I do so much in the town with the clients that I have. So it makes sense. I looked in Uxbridge, I looked in Mendon, and this just made sense for the location. It's not too far from where I'm at. I'm always going up and down King Street in Pulaski. So it makes perfect sense over there.
Okay.
And it's a building that's not getting used.
Yeah,
So-
it's a vacant building right now. Yeah.
So my friend owns the building. When he left there and he bought out, used to be Warren's Tire in Blackstone on Brathwaite Street. He bought that business, he relocated over there. So currently, he's got some old cars in there and a Corvette. That's what's stored in there. And the reason why he's never done anything with it is he needed a place to put those vehicles. So he just left everything there and left it as is. And he didn't know that the permit that he had to use over there, that it was gonna expire, because he would have kept it going. And I have the opportunity to obtain the building, so like I said, I want to beautify it. You go down that road, I want people to be like, wow, look at that, that's a nice building. Plus the people living there, won't have an eyesore. I mean, this building, you have so many other businesses over there. And Sammy's Ice Cream, Bonds, all that stuff, ABC Radiators right there.
So with that said, well, actually two things. One is, I believe out back is not the cleanest in the world. It's got some underbrush and stuff. Will you be cleaning that up as well? And also, what type of signage would you be thinking about for this building?
All right, there's two things. One, the whole backyard will be all cleaned up with the fenced areas. There's wetlands back there. There's actually a small little stream that's man-made that runs right in the side over there on the side of that road. I forget the name of the street off the top of my head. All that's gonna stay intact. Actually, if you're looking on the corner, looking at the building, far left corner, we're gonna cut that back in about 10 feet, so you have more visibility. There's no visibility right there, it's all overgrown.
Okay.
The backyard with the fenced in area, that's all gonna get cleaned up, and we're gonna put down some gravel. Just make it a clean area. We're really not gonna have anything back there at all. It's all fenced in. If anything, I'm gonna throw a picnic table back there and a grill. My staff, they wanna have something to eat, they can. That's all that is. And we'll have the complete fence and everything. Signage, I'm not even concrete on it yet, but what we're gonna do is, we're gonna have a nice sign in the door. And then what I was thinking about on the area where we're gonna clear back, and I was thinking about some type of small signage right there, something low key and classy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
I'm all set here.
anyone else on the board? Okay,
Good.
I'll open it to the public then. Just state your name and address.
Okay, I'm Ed Guido. I live at 690 Pulaski Boulevard, next to the property he's talking about. First of all, it's a residential area, the commercial zone, which I'm not concerned that much about. As for that building, my wife and I lived there. They had an auto body shop there, which it was told to be no painting whatsoever in that place. The owner of Morris Tire, we went to him several times and told him we were having problems with the people that had that building. They would spray in the middle of the night. They'd aim the guns out the windows to clean them. All their spray was coming in our house. At 1 o'clock in the morning, we had to leave the property with my granddaughter. You know, I mean, it put a big bitter in my mouth.
Yeah.
Like any of you people, if any of your children were smelling paint from a car when being sprayed in the middle of the night. And I went to Frank and told him several times, that went nowhere. Till I complained to the town and officially, if you could check the records, I had to call the state. That's basically all I've got. Nothing against this gentleman.
Yeah.
But I don't know what Frank told him, but that is the story. And then these people, they have no place to, when they plow, they have no place to go with the snow. So they would take it out of that lot because that one, that lawn area, that belongs to the person that owns the house.
Yes, I'm aware. Actually, I knew the previous owner of that property in the
Yeah,
back.
Mike,
Yes.
right? They would take the snow out of there and run it up on my lawn. And then you've got your little stream there. They were filling that up, which it was told to stop doing that. That's all I have to say.
Do you have any concerns for the proposed use that you've heard before the board tonight?
As long as we don't end up having diesel trucks running all hours of the night so they can keep them warm. So you're gonna have diesel fumes in your house. That's all.
Okay.
We don't have that. All my vehicles have depth. So diesel exhaust fluid in one. The trucks come back at the end of the day, 5 o'clock-ish. They get parked in, they're off, and that's it. Building's closed. No issues, no noise, no nothing. And we're not looking to make enemies with anybody. And my reputation of my company is pretty much solid. And if anybody had any questions or concerns, you can call me 24/7 as we are an emergency service. Like I said, I'm looking to beautify it. Any neighbors have any concerns about what we're doing over there, more than welcome to sit down and discuss.
I did that with the last ones that were there, and that would know.
Complete different business and
I
complete different
understand
people.
that. You're not gonna have all kinds of construction equipment there,
Nothing there.
nothing there. And I like that noted.
You can put that note in the minutes and in the permit.
Okay. And then, oh, go ahead. Yeah, Peter.
Mr. Chair, could I make a comment?
Oh, Tim, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
So over the past 5 years, Jim and myself, we've worked with so many different, this building has been for sale on and off for a long time. And we've talked to a lot of potential people trying to put their business in there. So it's been empty I've been here for almost 6 years. It's been empty for the whole time I've been there.
Yeah.
So, we've talked to a lot of people and we've tried to find the right fit. The automotive end just doesn't work there. The auto body shop, we wouldn't let anybody go in there. It's close to a watershed area. So we've said no to a bunch of them. They lost their used car rights, which they had at one time. So it kind of put a damper on the building. I mean, the owner does have the right to do something with it, but I think now's the chance to regulate it. We do know this gentleman, the applicant. He does a lot of business in town. He's in our department a lot. And he does, I've heard nothing but good things about him. So I think it's a good time to get it cleaned up, maybe get a site plan going on it and something that you guys can condition and I can monitor. We'll clean it up, get some tax money going out of it. It's been sitting way too long. So I think it's a good fit myself.
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, I was a client of Chris's and his trucks are immaculate and very professional. And like Tim said, and everyone else, I mean, I know the DPW came out and said that, oh, Chris, ADC does great work and nothing but good things to say about him, but.
I'll back up. You asked about storage and stuff. We wouldn't have any storage, but no equipment or anything. The only thing I do want to put in the back of it was 2 brand new portable toilets. You wouldn't even be able to see them. Basically, we have a couple different portable toilets. People want to see them before they even rent them. So we want to keep 2 new ones in the backyard, below the fence line, behind the building. You would never even see them. That's only for site reasons. Somebody comes by, hey, I want to do a weekend rental, or we're doing a wedding. Can we see the best ones you have? They can come in and see them, and that's it. But there's going to be no stink, no nothing. That's not what we're about, because we're here to make friends and more customers.
Okay, and then again, yeah, Chris, like you're saying, if you're on board with putting that in the conditions about hours of
Absolutely.
operation
No
and
question.
about, okay, great, all right.
Chairman, if I may?
Yeah.
Maybe due to his concern, if you come up with a snow removal plan of where to put snow and what the time when it comes.
Yeah, so
That
what we've
might
ended
help.
up doing, and I've already thought about it, because we're not gonna do any storage in the back. That's where you used to be cars back there and everything.
Yeah, you have 2 cars.
Yeah, that's all gonna get trashed, but there'll be 2 double gates there, so the snow will get pushed in the back lot. So, and we ended up, if we get a heavy snowstorm, we're gonna bring over skids there just for snow removal to push everything inside there, because I got one 1-ton dump truck with a 9-foot blade. If I can't maneuver it around to clean the lot all up, we'll bring the skids there over, clean it up, skids there goes home. So that's all. But we're not gonna push it up against, wanna keep the front lot nice and clean. We're not gonna put any over on the grass over there. And in fact, we did their sewer tie-in. But everything will go in the backyard and I'll just stack it up there. When it melts, just go back into the wetlands.
Okay, any other comments or?
Nope.
I was gonna make a nice corner. It looks like crap now. It's terrible.
No, and that's the little thing, the fencing, we'll do some nice signage, some greenery, just make it look really nice instead of what it is now.
You have to understand my end.
Absolutely, I do.
Because we almost had to in fact, we were thinking of bringing my granddaughter. She was only 4 or 5 years old, to the hospital that couple of nights.
Headaches and headaches.
Because the house was full of paint fumes. And I complained to the owner of the property and that going in there and clean through that one.
Well, that's definitely one thing you will not have there, because come the end of the day, everybody's gone, it's quiet.
What time do you close?
Truck usually rolls back in between, usually about 4 o'clock, but lights are gonna go off around 5 o'clock and that's it, unless I go in there at night and I'm doing some office stuff. But I'm still gonna maintain my other office in Blackstone because I live there. So at night, I'm gonna be, our computers are all wired together. So I'll be at my residence doing all the work, there'll be nobody there.
Okay.
Chris, on your, on your statement here, you said the hours would be from 8 to 5 during the week and 8 to 12 on Saturday.
I threw that in there just for the option, if I have something, we're not working out of there on weekends, we're not running trucks out of there, that's where we're running the other way. I put that in there for that purpose was if I decide to do a seminar, if I did decide to, you know what, I'm
So
gonna.
these hours would work then.
Oh, those hours would be perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for coming out and being patient.
Okay.
It's a long
Thank you.
meeting.
No, no,
I'll open it up to if there's anyone else in the audience.
Anybody online that wants to speak? Oh, I think, can't quite hear you. Yeah, you're unmuted.
Yeah, can I make a comment, Jim?
Sure.
So the applicant, he doesn't need to start his trucks up at 7 a.m., 8 a.m. is okay? I'm just checking.
My staff come in at 7:30. So by the time they start the equipment, leave at 8 o'clock.
Okay, that's fine. That's, there are residential houses around. I know that's the first thing that happens before 7 o'clock when you start the vehicle. So, okay, thank you.
All right, those from 7-Eleven Pulaski, you want to try? We can't.
That's on here. Is the volume just down low on their end, maybe?
Can hear. Yeah, you might, the keyboard might be muted, perhaps.
You know, they've been waiting patiently all night.
Yeah.
You could also type, there's a little chat function at the bottom if you want to type in your question. Happy to read it aloud.
Oh, I can hear you now.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm Dana and Dee, and I purchased the home, the little white stone house across the street. And so I'm concerned about, this is a residential area, and I'm concerned about noise. There's so much traffic here. It's a very, very busy street. I'm also concerned about septic. That is, we all know what septic is, and I'm concerned about scent. I know you spoke about that highly, but that still is a very concern to me. I'm also concerned about, I don't plan on hopefully not living here for an extended amount of years, and I'd like to turn the property around after we do our own construction. And I'm concerned about what your septic company would do to the value of the homes in the neighborhood.
Again, the business himself, it's, the company's not, I'm parking 2 vehicles there in an office front. We're gonna beautify the property, beautify that area. Second, there is no smell. I could drive my truck over there tomorrow and park in the parking lot. You can come and walk around it and you're not gonna smell a scent. There is no smell when that truck is not pumping. There's no leaks on the trucks, so you're not gonna smell anything. My trucks are kept very clean. So from the building itself, I have all this stuff at my residence right now, and my kids are swimming in my backyard. There is no smell. The time of smell is when we're dumping the truck at the dump stations, or we're physically pumping out a septic system where the vent pipe is on the side of the truck. That's where you get odor. And we actually cherry scent all of our trucks. So even the odors that you do get, it's a cherry smell that comes out of our vehicles. So you're not gonna have any of that issues across the street. You're not gonna have any noise at night. You guys won't have an eyesore when you look out your window, what you see there right now.
What about the value of the property? What does that do? What does the board feel about that? What does that do to people's property? Having a septic company in the neighborhood?
Well, I guess right now you have just a vacant property.
No, but if not, you're putting that forward. What's your opinion on that?
You have a garage up the street that has numerous vehicles all over the place. And it looks like a garage. Our business will not make your property value decline. If anything, I want to increase your property value about what we're gonna do to the building and the value of my property, how much it's gonna go up from the current value it is now once we do the improvements.
Well, that could be yes or no, because you're putting a business in a residential area. So that's
There's
not
already many
necessarily.
businesses there. Sorry to speak over you, but.
Right, but there's nothing there. There's no traffic, there's no cars, there's no activity there. And it's well lit. So you're not really answering the question, though.
Well, I guess like the building inspector commissioner was saying is that you could have any number of things could move into that property.
I can tell you right now, the current owner of the building has another 7 people behind me that want to buy this building. And he's already had numerous offers this year because people are looking for properties. Him and I are friends, we've shook hands on this. And so right now, we're kind of just waiting. I've already spent money on the site plan. We did the surveying and everything on this. So I'm thousands into the property already. And so if I don't do this with, having a low impact to that area with minimal vehicles, no noise, no emissions, nothing, you're gonna get somebody else that's gonna go into there, and who knows what you're gonna have there. I know there's been other auto body people having.
You have to go through the-
I've been refused.
You have to go through the same process though.
They do, but guess what? Somebody will end up in that. They're not gonna let that building just sit there and collect dust.
It's been open, it's been empty now for 8 years.
Yes, because Frank hasn't done anything with it.
No, because everybody that put in for it was rejected.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna be somebody that is gonna be horrible, because we live here. I mean, this is
Absolutely.
a residential area. There's dogs, there's children, and there's tons and tons and tons of traffic. These people fly up this road, and why it's not monitored is beyond me. They're going 60 miles an hour, flying up all morning and all night.
You have Sandy's Ice Cream, you have the Erdman's Garage, you have Vaughn's Restaurant. Those are all right there, right next door to everybody over there. We will be less impact than all of those businesses. Count the vehicles that go in and out of Sandy's coming from the southern end of Pulaski, from the northern end. There's hundreds of vehicles going there. You're talking maybe 15 vehicles a day stopping at my office to make a payment for a matter of 3 minutes and then leaving.
Well, also too, I work from home because I'm part of the pandemic situation. So I work from home, and I'm just was concerned about the noise and the construction that you're gonna be doing.
There's
Or
no
trying to be
construction.
doing.
There's no construction there. The only time there's gonna be.
There's always construction.
When from my business.
When you plan to, let's just direct it towards the board. And I guess, no one can really definitively answer that question as to the property value. Although I would make note of what the building commissioner said as to who's the activity for that property. I mean, I guess if it was me, I don't know, like you're saying, there's nothing there now, but do you want just a dilapidated structure or a vacant lot across from you? And you're also, I guess you're rolling the dice and you're gambling of what may or may not move into that property down the line. But to me, I guess as a board, we weigh your concerns and we value them, but we also look at the neighborhood and what potentially could be best for the neighborhood. And in my opinion, it seems like this looks like a fairly good applicant for this site. But I'll open it to the rest of the board, but we do appreciate you coming out and your patience. And we do want to try to, it's a tough neighborhood to try to balance at Pulaski with all the businesses. And we do try to be aware of that.
Yeah, one quick question actually be directed to Jim. This existing lot, even if they were to tear this building down, it's way too small to put a single family home on, correct?
Yeah, you never know, but that's why, like many other sites, because of the size and shape, it's very likely that this building would never be torn down. They're going to preserve their rights. So, you're likely looking at something like an office or something like that at this location.
Yeah, I mean, we could wind up with, a small doctor's office or a dentist with cars in and out all day long too.
I guess, is there anyone else in the public that wants to be heard?
Yes, sir. I would just like to point out that perhaps some kind of review on the traffic volume and the speed limit. We're on a blind corner. So I would be concerned, if I were him, I would be concerned with his vehicles pulling out in the morning to go to work. It's something to think about. But other than that, all my concerns have been allayed. The traffic is worst at the times that he's opening and closing. So that's something that you should be aware of and that he should be aware of. It is very intense. And I worry about when people come to visit because they don't back into the lot so they can see when they pull out of my property.
It's very dangerous.
Yeah, so I always back in. I've been trained to do it as a professional driver. But it's still a little bit dicey and it's hard to get into my property. I pull into that property to do a U-turn so that I can more easily get into my driveway. And I often have to wait for traffic to pass because it's coming at a high speed from a blind corner. And that's the only concern that I haven't had allayed by this meeting. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to close the hearing?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay,
So do we want to move to draft a favorable decision?
Do you mind, Jim, drafting a favorable decision?
If that's the motion, yeah.
So, yeah, I'll move to draft a favorable. This is subject to the things that we've talked about. So,
The conditions listed.
Yep.
I'll second that, Brian.
all right, discussion.
I'd just like to say, thank you, Chris, for coming here. It seems like you did your research. You presented a very detailed plan for us and you answered all the questions. And it seems like the neighbors, you eased their concern about what they're going to see. And it seems like you're up for, the challenge to present something really good for the community. So based on that, I agree with the board with the decision. Perhaps we can stipulate something simple such as if there are a certain amount of complaints, then maybe we can revisit, reconvene about that, but that would be my only comment.
Okay,
Sounds good. Great.
all right,
So, did we get a second?
Yes.
Yeah, I second it.
The vote, that's all.
all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay.
Excellent.
Then we'll just continue to the next meeting, October 7th.
Yes, to review a favorable decision.
And also, you want to explain about the 20-day appeal period and all that?
Well, once it gets reviewed and signed, there's a 20-day appeal period. So anyone who wishes to appeal that decision can do that at the town or by reviewing it at the town clerk's office.
Okay. All right.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Have a good night.
See you,
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys for coming in.
Appreciate your time.
So I've been told by Amy that we have to do the minutes.
Yeah.
There's no way out of these.
It's not journey.
So I have read all of them. So I can't make a motion if everybody's okay with that.
My only comments were, at the end, my name was misspelled, and also I don't think I was in the roll calls. When I was
The
present.
executive session, you don't need to worry about.
Correct, that was not present.
We'll do that another
It
time.
was only, Thursday, August 12th, executive session. That's all it was.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm okay with the.
Motion to accept the minutes with the as amended for all of the for the four minutes that we have.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion to close?
Motion to close.
Second, yeah.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Cool. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Tim.
Yes, feel better, Peter.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Dan.